Nancy's daughter, Savannah Guthrie, has just released a new video alongside several other relatives pleading for the return of her mother and making it very clear they are willing to pay. Please let us pay for our mother back. But I want you to take a look at this video and pay close attention. Rewind it if you have to, but we will go over it after I play it. The body language, specifically in the face, of all three of the people on camera while Savannah is delivering this message to the kidnappers. Something just feels off.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
Now, first, let's start with Savannah Guthrie, because honestly, in my opinion, on all accounts, I think she is the most authentic and genuine that there is when it comes to everything she's saying and feeling about this. So let me just point something out to you. This is all based on not only my experience in 10 years in prison, being in a very confined space with lots of inmates where you always have to threat assess and assess whether someone is lying or being genuine or truthful or inauthentic. And just everything I've learned on top of spending most of 2024 as well as all of 2025 taking multiple courses and getting certified in body language analysis.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now.
Already you can see, and she continues doing this the entire time she's talking almost, just this rapid blinking of her eyes, rapid eye blinking, which is usually indicating they're under a lot of stress, thinking about what they're saying. As they're saying it, it's something that really causes them a lot of stress and anxiety, just overall a nonverbal cue of discomfort, which makes total sense here for her.
To return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace.
Now, see, when she says that sentence specifically, she's doing a pretty rapid side-to-side head shake, followed by a downward tilt of the head and looking down. And usually what that means is there's a severe disappointment in just what is being said, who it's being said to, and almost an unwillingness to even look at or address this other person, which also totally makes sense. And I could absolutely see why she feels that way.
We received your message and we understand.
Now you see already Cameron Guthrie, he's the older brother of the siblings, all these siblings here, two sisters and a brother. Big brother looks like a pretty, for his age, fit, capable, in shape guy. And, look at the contrast of these three expressions. I see bravery and the willingness to speak out, as well as concern and even a little fear on Savannah Guthrie's face. We look at Annie Guthrie. Honestly, we'll get to her in a little bit. But you look at him, my goodness, there is no BS behind that expression. He's not happy about this. He's not happy about what's happened to his mother. He's not happy about what his sister is going through. He's holding her hand. He's looking at direct eye contact with this camera lens. Just to start off, this is the first 1 second of the video. There is contempt, and that is, in my opinion, having been around a lot of men in prison who exhibit the capability of protecting and defending either themselves or just something or someone they care about. That is the look of a man who is angry that he is not able to do something about this, because he absolutely would. And I know all the men out there watching recognize that. Look at that. Look at him. That man is ready, and he just needs any avenue to go down. And that's just in the first second. Let's keep watching.
Your message, and we understand. We beg you now to return.
See this unchanging, it just a few blinks, but just unchanging expression. He has a lot of thoughts in the back of his mind that are very different from these two girls right here.
Our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace.
And you see the long extension of him just kind of closing his eyes slash just looking down. Usually people close their eyes when they say or hear something they don't like or makes them uncomfortable. And in this case, I think it's most likely that we hear the pleas. There's almost a submission to the kidnappers with this whole ransom situation for their mother back. And him in his mind, it eats him up because this is not a man who wants to submit, but this is a man who understands that that may just have to be necessary, because ultimately what matters is getting mom home safe. But it's not his ideal scenario. He would love to know who you are and where you're at, and he'd love to come over there and get her back himself and do whatever needs to be done to you. And he's just closing his eyes and looking down and just, man, I know it is just eating at him that they're even having to make this video.
This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
And you see that I don't know if you caught it right at the end. She said, and we will pay. But when she says that, if you focus on him, while she says we will pay, he does just ever so slightly, just the smallest nod. He just goes, never changing his expression the entire video, which that is a man who acknowledges that his ego, his pride, his masculinity, and what he wants to do and how he wants to handle this situation. He recognizes that he is to an extent powerless, as much as he doesn't want to be. And I feel for him and I understand that. But he does recognize, all that set to the side. The smartest thing to do is whatever has to be done.
Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my show. I really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. I really appreciate all the support. Of course, I'm still in Arizona. I'm outside Nancy Guthrie's house right here. It's been some action here today. There's more deputies than we've seen here in the past. You can see them out here right here. And earlier there was actually a team that came in and it was looking in a septic tank behind the house, which I'm going to get into in this episode. I'm also going to go over everything that I saw late last night at Annie Guthrie's house when the deputies showed up there. And I have and this is really helpful, I have a Pima County sheriff's detective who just recently retired. And he is going to help me break down a lot of what we're seeing. It's all coming up in this episode of Brian and Tim Investigates. All right, hey guys. So again, I'm outside Nancy's house. If you're wondering what this big white thing is, this is what we use for our TV hits. And it's so hot out here today. It's so sunny that I was just going to do my my show under this too, because at least it's shady, But it's been there's been a lot of activity over the last 24 hours. Obviously, there was the Savannah Guthrie new video that she made where she said she's willing to pay. And again, my heart just goes out to her and her family. The whole thing is just, I was just talking to one of my colleagues out here. I'm super close to my mom. I'm an only child. And if this was my mom, I would just be wrecked. So the strength that Savannah Guthrie is showing is pretty incredible. And so my heart goes out to her and her family. But in terms of the latest and everything that's been happening here outside Nancy Guthrie's house, there's been some action today. And depending on when you're watching this, today is Sunday. There were some deputies that showed up earlier and then were in the backyard or behind Nancy Guthrie's house and opened up what looked like a manhole cover and then had a long stick that they were pushing into the manhole cover, which it seems like it's a septic tank. A few of you all messaged me and said you thought that it was a water tank. I'm not really sure. One of my sources was telling me normally they would use that pole to, again, it sounds kind of graphic, but they would use it to probe for a body to see if there's anything down there. So they were doing that. That seemed to be their main focus today when they were out here, and they were here for about an hour and then left. And besides that, it's been relatively quiet here at Nancy Guthrie's house, besides just sort of deputies patrolling the area. And they have still been canvassing and going door to door and that kind of thing, just looking for anybody who has any information. There was also a lot of activity last night at Annie Guthrie's house. If you were following the I was posting a lot on YouTube stories and on TikTok because I was out there late last night. Basically, we got word that there were these 3 deputies that showed up to Annie Guthrie's house. We didn't know, at first I didn't know if they were like FBI or deputies, but when they left, I was able to look and see they had like a deputy.
It's definitely kind of suspicious that this is supposed to be a kidnapping, but yet they're back at the house where the kidnapping is supposed to take place. So the law enforcement obviously suspects that she never left the house. That she never, they must have came to the conclusion that, because I mean, it makes sense. Nobody really goes around kidnapping old people. And this old woman's not even she's not even a multimillionaire. She's nobody. Now, her daughter, she works on we've seen her in the news networks. You know, she makes pretty good money. She also, Annie is married. She's married to, let me see who she's married to. Let me see, I think I got it here. She's married to Tomasa Kehoni. Yeah, that's her husband. So, I don't know, man. This seems a little bit suspicious that the police are coming back to the house in which they said she was kidnapped from. And they were searching in the hole, looking for bodies around the house. So they obviously don't believe, it's the apparent that they don't believe that she was kidnapped.
Logo on their side. And they were there for 3 hours. There were three of them, from what I could count. They showed up, they went inside, and they had some equipment that they brought inside. And then we could see flashes from inside. We could see light flashes, which they were taking pictures inside. It was pretty obvious. At first, they were just taking pictures near the garage area. I could see through the windows, but then I was watching and you could see they were moving throughout the house. They were taking pictures in different parts of the house. They were there for about 3 hours. They had blue gloves on, I noticed, when they came out. And after being there for 3 hours, came out, got in the cars, didn't say a word, and then slowly drove off. So the timing is interesting because, remember, this was happening around the same time that, or a little bit after, that Savannah Guthrie had put her video out, you know, saying that they would be willing to pay. And I can read, you've probably seen the video by now, but what she said was, I wrote down the verbatim. She said, "We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us and we will pay." A lot of people have read into this that they think Nancy is not alive based on what Savannah said there. I'm not sure. I mean, we could read into it a million different ways, but it's just tragic, regardless of what way you read into it. And that video came out, and then afterwards is when the deputies showed up at Annie Guthrie's house. What they're looking for there, I don't know. I didn't see them searching outside at all. They seemed pretty focused on the inside. And were they just taking pictures inside? I'm not sure. But it was interesting timing. It was interesting that they came there late at night. And sorry, I'm just checking for one other thing I wanted to tell you guys about. Yeah, they were in and they were out and they left without saying a word. So I have something interesting. I interviewed a man named Kurt Dabb. He's a former Pima County Sheriff's detective. So Pima County, of course, is where we are. He was a homicide detective there for years. He has some really interesting insight into what he thinks is going on, what was going on at Annie's, and then also just big picture what's going on with the Pima County Sheriff's Office, because a lot of people have questioned whether they're really prepared for an investigation like this, mistakes that were made early on, things that the sheriff has admitted to. You know, why did they open up the crime scene so early? So it's interesting to get this insider perspective because he still knows people there and he was there for a very long time, Kurt was. So I want to play this interview that I got with Kurt for you guys. So, Kurt, you worked for Pima County Homicide for how long?
7 years total.
And how long were you at the department?
I was at the department for a little over 20 years.
Okay. So thank you for talking to me.
Sure.
Just with your experience and knowing the area locally is really helpful. I just want to start with the most recent thing. Last night I was out there at Annie's house, and we saw 3 deputies come, and they had not a ton of equipment, but one bag and box. They went inside, and they were inside for about 3 hours. Okay. We saw flashes, definitely camera flashes from different rooms in the house. What do you think was happening?
Well, they were obviously sent back there to find something. How that something came about, I don't know. You know, I'm sitting on the outside like you, but it could have been through an interview. It could have been through some of the forensic stuff that they had sent out to be processed. So there's a myriad of reasons why they could have been back there. But suffice to say, you know, at least they were back there, you know, following up and continuing the investigation.
The one I saw was wearing blue gloves.
Okay.
Do you think they were just taking pictures?
Well, I mean, you got to think about it again. It should be treated as a crime scene, whether it's Nancy's house or Annie's house. So you want to make sure that, you know, you're not going to leave any evidence that contaminate the scene. So that's why they were wearing gloves, I'm sure. But what they collected, we don't know. Yeah.
I didn't see them. They brought one brown bag out, but he didn't seem like he kind of tossed it in the car. Like I think it was more maybe what he was, some kind of work he brought.
It could have been, you know, it could have been scraps or garbage. They could have collected, you know, some pieces of evidence in there. Maybe they were fingerprinting. Maybe they were collecting DNA. Maybe they were simply just taking photographs. And that's the stuff, you know, that they may have brought out. It could have been trash from, you know, their processing, or it could have been pieces of evidence.
Are you surprised that they were just doing that now? I mean, it's been 7 days.
Right. Well, it's not really a surprise if you think of it in the grand scheme of things, where you're furthering an investigation and you're getting more information as it goes. So you may have to go back to the scene of the crime, or other places that you just discovered may have been part of a scene of a crime. I think what my concern is maybe that house should have been processed the same day as the first house. And I don't know if it has been. I don't have any inside information, but from the outside, that's kind of what it looks like, is maybe that stuff wasn't done first, and, you know, they had to go back because they did get some type of information.
Would it be normal for just 3 deputies to show up, and they didn't put any crime scene tape up? Right. It kind of seemed low key, whereas like at Nancy's house, when the FBI came back, it was a big production. What does that say?
Well, it doesn't say a whole heck of a lot. You know, it could be those 3 detectives were tasked at a briefing, which they should be having multiple times a day, or at least once a day, daily, because you're getting new information in. So it could have been simple as, you know, a sergeant or a lieutenant or a captain saying, hey, we need to go back to the house and get this. Let's keep it low key. We don't want cause a lot of trouble in the neighborhood. There's already enough ruckus going on, you know, at the other scene. So maybe that's what it was, just to go in low key and not make a big disturbance.
Is the timing strange that they went at night?
No, because you got to go when you find the information. So maybe it was something they just discovered yesterday in the afternoon. They had to have a briefing and formulate a plan, a course of action, and then they went back. So that stuff could happen at any point in time.
You saw the latest message from Savannah?
I saw the message last night.
Yeah. What do you make of it?
Well, again, being from the outside, but using my training and experience, thinking back on the, you know, numbers of homicides that I've investigated, I don't think it's going to have a positive outcome, you know, of Nancy being returned alive. I think it was more of, and this is just a guess, thinking it was more of, hey, you know, we intended to bring her back to you. Unfortunately, you know, circumstances happened, but we still need to get paid, and we'll return, you know, her remains to you, or let you know where they are for X amount of money. But that's just me. That's just my feeling on what I saw last night. I'm praying, and have been praying, that, you know, she is returned whole and healthy. But last night's video from Miss Guthrie, you know, caused me some concern about that happening.
It's so unusual that we have the video coming out, but then also the search at Annie's house.
Yep.
And I mean, could there be multiple theories that they're working at the same time?
Look, I mean, I've never seen anything like this. My 7 years in homicide, 20 years as a cop, investigated a couple of kidnappings, but I think for the most part, kidnappings, especially in this local neck of the woods, southwestern Arizona, a lot of it has to do with cartel-related kidnappings, drugs, smuggling, people smuggling, avocado smuggling, whatever. This is different. I don't think that has anything to do with what this case is. But then again, you could have somebody that jumped on the bandwagon right away, saw what was going on, sent a ransom note, just trying to extort money from Miss Guthrie and her family, like we did with the one or two others, one of which, was arrested. And it could be a red herring. And they're still trying to figure out where she is. So yeah, it's a bit confusing.
The area where this happened, I mean, Annie lives 10 minutes from Nancy. You live right in this area, so
Yes.
You're very familiar with the area. Is it a quiet area normally? I mean,
Nancy's and
Annie's.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an extremely quiet neck of the woods. I mean, most of the houses are on 1 acre lots. This whole area was bought by the Genemattis family back in, I think, the 40s, and then subdivided the lots. And, that's where it is. It's not like in the city proper, city of Tucson. We're on the outskirts. We're in the city. Everything's, bunched up next to each other. So yeah, it's very peaceful. The type of crimes that occur up here are, car break-ins, burglaries. Obviously, we've had a few homicides throughout the years. We have a lot of transients that live in the area, a lot of sex offenders that are in this, neck of the woods. So it's very quiet, but there is that underlying criminal element that, every once in a while will rear its ugly head.
Would it be an easy place to get away from? I mean, it's very dark out there at night.
It's extremely dark on this side of town. It would be extremely easy to, commit a crime and get away. You have a lot of avenues approach in Annie's neighborhood, much like mine and Nancy's. There's multiple routes to come in and come out. So we have a main thoroughfare here, Oracle Road. The highway is 4 miles to the west of us, down Ina or Orange Grove or River Road. I don't know how many, traffic cameras. I see, we have a couple here, but they're not monitored by law enforcement. They're monitored by the DOT, the Department of Transportation, to monitor the traffic. And I don't know how long, they hold, video in the cloud or whatever, but those are some things that I would, be looking at. A quick avenue of escape. The highway is right here. The main freeway is right over there. So there's cameras abound. It's just whether or not, we're able to get access to them and see if there's anything on there.
You were on the inside for a long time here. Pima County.
Yes, sir.
They've been under the microscope. A lot of people are questioning things that they've done. Do you think they're prepared for this?
Well, look, when you're conducting an investigation such as this, there's a lot of things that can go right and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. You're getting bombarded. I mean, I can't even imagine. I worked the Gabby Giffords case. I was in homicide at that time. I was at the Safeway for nearly a week. And the amount of tips that come in, they range from the wackadoo to what you think would be normal, psychics. You're just getting bombarded with those things, and you have to suss your way through that to determine, what you're going to follow up on and what you're not. I think at the Sheriff's Department in the past, few years since I left, there's been a mass exodus, which has drained the department of experience. I've heard things, whether they're true or not, it's just information that I've heard, is that the average experience for a patrol deputy is like 3 years. That's a baby cop, right? They've a year in academy and field training, and now you're out on the street. Mistakes are going to be made. And I think that has happened the same thing in the homicide unit, is all of the tenured men and women that worked there that had years and years of homicide experience, working half of what the city of Tucson got every year. So we're looking at between 15 to 20 homicides a year. We used to investigate when I was in. Now they're averaging in the county maybe 4 or 5 a year. And the detectives that are in homicide, that makes them less experienced because they're not having the exposure to real life homicides. Just because you're in homicide doesn't mean you're the case ace, but you're going to get experience by going out and interviewing, looking for evidence, downloading videos, reaching out and getting subpoenas or search warrants. And I think that experience or lack thereof, has shed its light on this case. That being said, I do know that, the detectives and the deputies that work for the sheriff's department here are top notch. They're very level-headed. They're very knowledgeable, but only to a certain extent.
Were you surprised to see the crime scene cleared so quickly? Because we were able to walk up and see the blood, and I thought, gosh, they'll have this at least one deputy out there sort of maintaining with tape up for like a week. The fact that it was just a couple of days.
Well,
not even a couple of days.
Yeah. So when we get a search warrant so we'll take the Gabby Giffords, for example. We were up there for an entire week. We closed down the entire shopping center. Businesses, were being affected. And as the week went on, businesses started coming back and they started opening up. So you want to work from the outside and close down the scene until you get to the scene proper. And then, you're going to stay there for a while. And that's what we did up there. With Nancy's, I don't know how long they had, control of the scene. I do know that they relinquished the scene and turned it back over to the family. It's not out of the ordinary, but I think that there were some things that were left at that scene based on what I've noticed on TV. Nancy's car wasn't towed till a couple of days ago. A couple of days ago, the FBI and the sheriff's department were back out there. They were on the roof and they allegedly, got a camera and a couple of floodlights that may or may not have had cameras. So those are things that I know I would have been done and my team would have taken care of. So if you're going to relinquish a crime scene within, that short amount of time, you best make sure that everything that you should have gotten, you did get. And
so you think it's just an experience?
I think it's an experience as a whole with the entire agency. There are you're going to find more people that have less than 10 years on the department than you do more than 10 years with the department.
So your gut, having done this for a long time, where do you think this goes next?
Well, you've got two different things going on, right? You have this ransom note and what I believe is, a plea to get the remains of Nancy back. And then you still got to figure out who the hell did this. Obviously, you have to start at the beginning with the victim. This is one of the things that, I learned is you as an investigator, you take on, this information. You're learning about people's patterns of life. So you're learning about the good about them. You're learning about the bad about them. And I'm not saying there was anything bad about, the victim or any of the suspects or anything, but these are things that you have to take into account. And you really have to get to know patterns of life. Where do they live? Where do they work? Do they go to church? Do they go to church in person? Do they go online? Who do they go to dinner with? Who are their friends? Who do they call in the middle of the night? Who do they talk to when they're having problems? These are all things that initially and should continuously be done throughout the investigation. And I think, there's been a lot of talk about looking at, Annie and Tommaso. Well, that's a normal thing that you have to do because their family, they're closest to. From what the sheriff said in the first interview, Tommaso was the individual that dropped her off. And a couple of days later, he changed verbiage and said family members. Well, take that for what it is. It could have been a miscommunication during the initial press conference that he held. And then he got, different information later. So, but I just think that, I'm not going to say the ball was dropped because they've done an amazing job. They've garnered a lot of information. And again, with the help of, the media, I think mistakes were made, but they're not overcomable. It's just they're having to go back. And again, that's not that big of a thing either, because like I said earlier, as the investigation progresses, you're going to get more information and you may have to go back to the scene.
Do you think that they're having people take lie detector tests? I was thinking about that this morning. Is that a tool they would use?
So I worked at the agency for a little over 20 years. It's 7 years in homicide, 2 different stints, one 3 years and one 4 years. Out of all the homicide investigations that I've been a part of, I myself have never had anybody successfully even take a polygraph. There's not a lot of polygraph readers out there or administrators out there. It's not utilized in court. I think of it as like a preliminary breath test during a DUI investigation. Yeah. It's going to give you maybe reasonable suspicion and may give you, you know, an avenue to go after because you're getting more information. But as far as I know, I don't think anything's been released about any polygraphs being administered. And I think with the FBI being, you know, on board and conducting a parallel investigation, if you will, we know they have a lot of access to polygraph administrators and things like that. So it may not be beyond a reason of a doubt that it has been done, but I don't know.
How sophisticated is this kidnapping? You think about Bitcoin, we're a weekend and no one knows what happened.
It's bonkers. I've never seen a case like this. I've never heard of a case like this. I mean, for all I know, this is the first time anything has occurred like this. To me, on the outside, and, you know, taking into account my training experience, if we're to believe that the ransom note is indeed directly tied to her kidnapping, this is an extremely professional crime. It's extremely professional. The timelines that have been laid out, you know, the last time, you know, there was a motion sensor was 2-something in the morning or before 2, and then her pacemaker stopped working, you know, 40-some minutes later. That leads me to believe her pacemaker stopped working because her phone and watch were left at the house and she was separated from it. So you've got like 40-some minutes where this individual or individuals were inside the house. Now that should tell you something. What it tells me is that it tells me that they were extremely comfortable in their environment. They weren't worried about the cops showing up. They weren't worried about neighbors being nosy. So yeah, it's a extremely complicated case, and I think one that is going to be commented on for years to come. I mean, I don't think there's a book written for this type of case. You know, we always say when you have kids, you're trying to be the best parent, but there's no book for it. And I think that's the same thing in this case. And I don't know how the FBI feels. I haven't spoken to any of my FBI friends or what have you, but yeah, this is an extremely complex case.
And just back to Annie's, again, we saw them last night going in with the pictures inside, but and we've had camera people out there pretty much around the clock. We haven't seen them search the outside of the house. Is that surprising to you?
Yeah, it is surprising to me. But just because you haven't seen it done, it doesn't mean it hasn't been done. But that would have been one of the first things that I did, because if you're looking at the family and you're going through the investigative steps and procedures, that should be something that popped up. I mean, if you're going over there and you're going to take a car and a cell phone, or cars and cell phones, you know, in the initial stages of the investigation from that residence, well, one would think it would behoove you to do a search of inside the residence and outside the residence. So, but again, you know, that's were they allowed to, did a judge approve a search warrant for that, right? A judge may approve the search warrant for a vehicle and or a phone, but said, no, you're not allowed to search inside or outside. So you have to look at those things as well. But yeah, I do find it a little bit strange that a search wasn't done in the exterior.
I appreciate you, Kurt.
Sure.
Thank you for talking with me.
Absolutely.
All right, so I really appreciate Kurt for talking with me, and I'm glad that I was able to meet him while I was out here, because he's going to be a really good resource for me moving forward, just again, since he has the sort of the local.
This appears that the police seem to suspect that the grandmother is still at the house. I mean, they tripped. It's supposed to be kidnapping. So they doubled back to the home, and they were, I guess, looking for more clues. They were searching around the house and it like, so obviously they don't think or obviously don't believe that she was abducted from there. And I mean, this could be an in-house crime. This could be foul play. I mean, I don't know why, because who goes around and kidnap old ladies in Arizona who's not even a millionaire? Nobody know who she is or who she was, right? I mean, until this. Now we know who her daughter was, right? We've seen her on, I think, a newscaster, but nobody knew who her grandmother was. Nobody really even cares. So who would go that out their way to kidnap some old lady who nobody knows about? She's not even a millionaire, right? She hasn't. Only thing this seems here, maybe somebody took her out because maybe insurance policy. Maybe she had $1 million insurance policy out on herself. I don't know. This is maybe in-house. Because in Arizona, in that place, who's going to go through there kidnapping somebody? You're in the no man's land. It takes like an hour to get to like the nearest gas station. Any noise, anything, the neighbors are going to be on your ass. So how would you set up a kidnapping there? Because any strange vehicles, they're going to be on it, man. Because it's a very small town. Probably like 100-something people in there. Maybe 100, 200 people in the neighborhood. And you just come up in there and kidnap some old lady who ain't even worth no money. She's not. Who is she? What's up, Lord ADS? No, like who would kidnap some old lady worth no money? The only one who can benefit from this will be whoever had that insurance policy out on her, right? People take them insurance policy out on she's married to some guy. What was the guy's name? Her husband. Let's see what her husband's name is. I looked it up. She's married to some guy. Let me see. Her husband's name is Tommaso Caiani. Right? This is her husband. This is Annie's husband. And he's worth like $1 million or something. So that's not too much money. So he would only want to have motive, I think. Took an insurance policy, life insurance policy out on her. Maybe $1 million life insurance policy. Maybe a conspiracy. They wanted to split the policy up, get $225 a piece. I think multiple, because she was last seen coming from her daughter's house. And who took it from her daughter's house? Her daughter's husband, her son-in-law, took her and dropped her off. And the report said that he waited. Now, this lady's 84 years old. So the report said he waited till she walked in the house. If my stepmother is, let's just say this is my mother-in-law, and she's 84 years old, I'm going to escort her in the house. I'm going to walk her into the house. I'm not going to sit there and wait in my car until she go in the house. She might fall over. We'll make sure I'm going to help her. So maybe this is in-house, baby. This source, it might be foul play here because it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense that you would have some old lady that nobody knows, doesn't have any money. She's broke, but she ain't broke, but she ain't got you're looking at life sentence here, right? This is a potential death penalty case, right? This is not a laughing matter. You talk about kidnapping. Yeah, this is definitely life sentence, 100%, and possible special allegations. So, I don't understand who would do this, go this far for this little bit of money. She ain't worth no money. right? She ain't worth any money. So who? Let's go look at some more information.
Ashley Banfield, who hosts her own podcast called Drop Dead Serious, is breaking exclusives on this case like nobody's business. And yesterday, she had quite a doozy. I'm going to bring her on. She's going to explain what she learned, but she reported exclusively that they actually do have a potential suspect in the case. And the identity is rather shocking. We're going to bring her in now. Ashley Banfield, thank you so much for joining us. So tell us what you say, very reliable law enforcement source told you about a possible suspect in the case.
Sure. So after almost 4 decades in this business, I've collected a few friends at the FBI and in local law enforcement all over the country. And the source that I have is impeccable. And he said that not only were the cameras smashed, plural cameras smashed, so that the suspect likely knew about the locations of them, but that the car belonging to the sister of Savannah Guthrie, Annie Guthrie, was towed, impounded, and taken into evidence. And this is the wording. It's very important. The wording is very important. He said they now believe the son-in-law may be the prime suspect. Those are the words. Son-in-law may be the.
And this is before I heard of any of this. I was coming off the top of the dome. I was going off the top of the dome, right? And then I just pulled this up right now. They're obviously looking at the son-in-law. Because once again, first of all, there's not a lot of rich people in Arizona, number one. 2, nobody know who the fuck Annie is, right? Nobody know who she is. So who's going to go? Once again, kidnapping carries a life sentence. So if you're going to do this, you want it to be a multi-millionaire, more millions. So when you try to get whatever going ransom or whatever you want to ransom for at least 30, 40 million, you're talking about a potential life sentence here. Not for no $2, $3, not even $100,000 worth it, right? So this definitely smells in-house, right? It definitely smells like some foul play here. She's too old to be nobody's sex trafficking her. They want young kids. They ain't sex trafficking no old 84-year-old lady. Nobody desires. So we definitely got some foul play in here.
Prime suspect at this point. And I'm very mindful. I covered the Elizabeth Smart case. I was out in Salt Lake City for 5 weeks while Elizabeth Smart had vanished. And I recall specifically a lot of language saying Ed Smart is likely the prime suspect here. And so you got to be really mindful that, as you know, Megan, you're a lawyer. Police investigations start in the middle of the circle and they go out in concentric circles in terms of investigating family members, right? You start in the middle of the family, you investigate out from there. Then you go to contractors and friends and workers and everybody else who's had some contact. And then there's the randoms. So it is not surprising that someone in the family is being looked at. That language to me was pretty strident, though.
It's surprising to me because there was forced entry. And from the beginning, I thought, well, they must have ruled out the family pretty quickly if this is a case of forced entry, because the family wouldn't need to do that. The family would presumably have a key, and if they didn't have a key and they wanted to get in, they just knock on the door and Nancy Guthrie would open it.
So this is super interesting. And I had a long conversation with my former colleague, Brian Enton, about this, because Brian identified blood drops at the front door, right? And he's shown the video of it. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
However, my source says the back door is wide open. Back door left wide open. That's what my source said. I had Megan, half-hour conversation 2 days ago.
I watched it.
The sheriff, yeah. And I specifically said, so are you telling me, when you said that she did not walk out of that house on her own, I said, are you telling me that she might have been carried out of that house? And I used the word over the threshold of the front door. And he said, I didn't say front door. But he didn't say no carried. But when he said, I didn't say no to the front door, and then, and the next day I'm getting information about the back door, it's pretty safe to say, well, that makes perfect sense. However, Why is there blood at the front door? And Brian Enton said he couldn't find the trail continuing past to the walkway that would take you to the driveway. Now it is gravel, a little harder maybe to see any blood, but not impossible. So I'm trying to go
But couldn't they have
through
gotten her in the car, Ashley? I mean, like, I'm picturing a scenario where couldn't all those facts be consistent with they came in through the back door,
Yeah,
then they got her, then they brought her out the front door after injuring her.
could.
Then the blood trail continued just to the driveway
Well, it didn't.
where they then
That's-
put her in a car.
that's the
It
problem.
it ended well prior to the driveway?
Yeah, the blood trail is just at the front door on those tiles. Then the gravel starts right away, and it's a walkway to the driveway, and it's not close. I mean, it's a bit of a ways. Nancy Guthrie can't walk 50 yards, pardon me. Nancy Guthrie can't walk 50 yards on her own, so she would need assistance. And if you're bleeding and you've been in some sort of a melee, that would be even less. So I was going through the scenarios in my mind. Okay, maybe the front door camera is smashed and the doorbell is rung to get Mrs. Guthrie downstairs, because that would be difficult in the middle of the night. It would get her down those stairs. So the confrontation might happen at the front door, right there at the tiles. There's a struggle. And then because the car is not parked right out front where all that could be visible potentially, maybe the car is around the back, and that's why they go out the back door. And because
Is that a
you're now
possibility?
struggling, I have no
Could
idea.
a car be
I'm
parked in the
surmising.
back?
I don't know, because I've been trying to see with drone video whether the car could get out into a darker spot or maybe out of camera view, because the smashing has to happen. But I was told that the cameras were smashed, and plural. So if there's a camera in the back, camera in the front, smashed. And then, of course, Brian Enton noticed it and said, asked the sheriff, did you take them? Or did you think the guy or the suspect took them? And the sheriff had a funny answer. He said, yes, I noticed that too. We're looking into it.
Yes. So what he saw,
Definitely in-house. Somebody had to know about the cameras. Because I mean, it was somebody, some strange, some random dude. They're gonna wear masks. They're not really too much concerned about the cameras. They know that they may park the car or waist down so you can't see, and then they're gonna make their way on foot to the house. But they're gonna wear disguises. They're gonna have on masks. So they're not going to be concerned about no cameras. If it's like some random, somebody trying to, take her down for some money, they trying to random. Right, number one, they weren't wearing no mask. That's one. Two, they knew exactly where the cameras were at. So that means it was more than one person involved, right? So maybe the son-in-law took her to the house, right? Drove off, parked down the street, came back, bust the cameras, then called in maybe the husband of Nancy. So because it take two people to carry that body out. Right? Probably need two people to carry that body out. So yeah, there was an accomplice, definitely. This is definitely in-house. So, but what is does she have own properties? Does she her insurance policy? Name maybe a trust? Maybe there's some family money that they want. This definitely seemed like a financial type thing. I mean, what else would they do this for? Like, because obviously this is slop. They've planned this out for a long time. This is something they planned out for a very long time. Let's take a look.
Brian Enton saw was like the remnants of a Nest camera, not even
Correct.
the Nest camera, right? Like it was clear to him that they had been removed, which is not the same thing as destroyed. The sheriff is saying that they were destroyed right before we got to them. So he made it sound like they were destroyed by the perpetrator here, by the bad guy.
Sheriff didn't say on the news conference that the cameras were destroyed. Brian Enton shot that video and asked, the cameras are missing. Did law enforcement take them, or did the perpetrator take them? And the response from the sheriff was, yes, we noticed that too. We're looking into it. And so, look, I can tell you, you know this, Pima County, there's not a lot of crime there. I'm trying to think of the last major thing that happened. I think it was Gabby Giffords being shot there, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And so I think he's working in real time, and trying to protect his investigation, keep the integrity, and answer real questions he wasn't expecting maybe, and couching, his verbiage as best he can. But he didn't say, oh, we don't know that we took the cameras, or no, there never was a camera there. He said, yes, we noticed that too, and we're investigating that. We've got them.
It's your reporting that has added that they were destroyed.
And multiple. I don't know the location of the other one. My guessing, and it's just me, would be backdoor.
Yeah,
but
that's where you put the Nest camera.
My source also said, and this is musings, not evidence or information. Who takes an 84-year-old woman who can't walk well on her own? It is a burden. It is a troublesome endeavor. It makes you more susceptible to being caught. You now have a problem on your hands. What are you going to do with this person without anybody seeing it? And it stands to reason. It's very unusual for some random burglar to take the person if something happens.
It's not a random burglar. No, I agree. So it's either somebody who's kidnapping her and wants money for a ransom, or is kidnapping her as a revenge because they dislike her, or maybe Savannah or another family member. Or it could have been a
personal
murder.
musings again.
It could have been a murder
source.
that they were then removing the body from the crime scene.
That's even worse, because again, now it's on your hands to get rid of the body, and the evidence is now in your car and all the rest. It's not that it hasn't happened. It has. It's more likely that a random person would leave that body in the house and get a clean getaway with no DNA evidence in the car, if that's possible. But the other random musings was that something like this, and again, these are the random musings, this is not evidence. This kind of a crime typically requires a benefit. And like you mentioned, the ransom notes, musings are baloney. That, you don't email a ransom note to TMZ or a local, station. It's not normal. It's not usual. And that time frame as well. Ransom notes usually come pretty quickly. This was 72 hours later. So, and look, I can't wait for that investigation to yield some idiot that thought that they were going to get some Bitcoin out of a tragic situation. It makes me, they're just festering parasites when they do this.
I mean, it does. We still don't know, though, whether Savannah Guthrie has received a ransom demand or law enforcement has, because they've been very cagey about the ransom question. The first day he was asked, which was Monday, Sheriff Nanos said, no, I haven't heard anything like that. And he was kind of forthcoming. And then, as you know, yesterday, Tuesday, he was much more tight-lipped. He wasn't as forthcoming with answers. And the question of whether a ransom note had been introduced seemed more ambiguous on day 2 than it did on day 1.
It's funny. I'm looking back at my notes from my conversation. I said, has there been and this was the Monday, as you said, has there been any demand for ransom? And he said, we don't know. He said to me, we don't know. Those were the words. However, this came out yesterday. You probably saw it. This was the QR code and the statement from Chris Nanos, the sheriff, saying, we are aware of reports circulating about possible ransom notes, parentheses S, right? Note, parentheses S, regarding the investigation into Nancy Guthrie. We're taking all tips and leads very seriously. And anything that comes in goes directly to our detectives who are coordinating with the FBI. We encourage anybody to use this QR code. So and also our friend Harvey Levin at TMZ broke it yesterday. They got the email yesterday. Yeah. So I don't think Harvey had it on Monday. And I would highly doubt that the local TV station had it Monday and didn't report it till Tuesday.
All right, but separate, that's sort of a red herring, we think, on the side. But the news about Savannah's brother-in-law is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I have to be honest. A lot of people initially thought, should we be looking at the family? Because that's
the way it works.
90% of the time, exactly. That's who it is. Usually, crime is not committed by some random person coming into a home and kidnapping an 84-year-old. Usually, it's a tragedy that somebody
knows where both cameras are.
Yeah, exactly. Knows where both cameras are, front and back, and possibly manages to get her to open the door, or somehow maybe has a relationship with her. But of course, the thought of Savannah's not on the table. She was in New York. She had to fly out there after this all happened. The sister, I mean, like, it just seems beyond
Can I ask you a
possibility that the sister had something to do with it. But now we're talking about the sister's husband. Yeah, you go.
Spidey senses, Megan, with all your experience in being a lawyer and being in the media, Do you think that they would seize the vehicle of Savannah Guthrie's sister and impound it, tow it, not ask for it, come in, we want to take a look, tow it, impound it? The words that were used are, it is in evidence. If they didn't have a little stronger feeling about this, because that sends a massive message early in the investigation. If you are
Absolutely.
taking the daughter of the victim's car, that was, and a famous daughter's sister, that was another thing that I'm just putting a lot of pieces together.
No, you're
And
right. And
again,
you're,
I'm
and
not
the
very
other thing the
experienced,
audience should know, they probably already do know, is you're not some whack reporter. Like, this is your beat. You've
I've
been
done it a
covering
million
crime
times.
for 20 years. You're very solid. Your reporting
40.
standards.
38, but who's counting? 38
You've
years
been
this year.
reporting for many, many years, but like
Yeah.
your reporting standards are very high. So you understand very well the gravity of reporting something like this. This is not just some slapdash operation. And you trust this source that told you right now he's the
High
prime.
level.
Yeah.
High level.
Okay.
High
So no, you're
level.
right.
I
They
can't
wouldn't.
say
And
they
when
don't
was
get a
it
lot
that they
higher than
seized
this
the
level.
car?
Why was it they seized the car?
When?
I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that the FBI, according to Brian Enton, was over at Annie Guthrie's house yesterday for several hours.
International disputes, inflation, rising national debt, digital currency. There is a never-ending list of reasons that gold has risen over 700% in the last 20 years. And a never-ending list of reasons smart Americans diversify a portion of their.
Well, it definitely seems like it's foul play here. The police are going back to the house, searching for who knows what. There just seems to be now. I guess one can say.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another edition of Criminal Lawyer Reacts, CLR Bruce Rivers. I'm Bruce Rivers, your board-certified criminal defense lawyer, coming to you with my pearl handle pistol cufflinks, so graciously gifted to me by our former content genius, Michael Rivers, that you knew and I know, my son, and he was trained on all the 50 states, so you can do your own legal research. So go to askalawyer.com. They there's a Nest door cam, and there were other cameras in the house and outside the house that were smashed. Well, what does that tell you? That is foul fucking play, right? And how horrible for the Guthrie family. She's an 84-year-old woman, lost her husband when Savannah was in high school, I believe, and she never remarried. And it's just, by all accounts, this woman was inoffensive to anybody. But what do we know? So we know that there's blood inside and outside the home. That's disturbing. And during the press conference, they didn't say it was blood. And that's because it hasn't been tested. We don't know whose blood it is. Could that have been caused by the person smashing the camera? It absolutely could have. And here's the thing that makes this kind of more like an abduction or something like that. You've got a couple things going on. This happened roughly at 2 a.m. How do we know that? Well, she wore a pacemaker, and the pacemaker is connected to her iPhone. And when that separates, no longer gets a signal. And it's not like you can get a GPS signal from the pacemaker, but that's kind of a benchmark about when they think she left the house. So that's when because her phone was left there at the home. It is interesting that there's blood inside and outside the home. I could totally see somebody smashing their fingers or cutting themselves in trying to smash the glass that's on, these devices. And you wouldn't have these smashed by any other means than ill means, right? Is there any legitimate reason why somebody would smash these cameras? No, there isn't. So that's why we know there's some foul play involved. So we know that they smashed the cameras and came in about 2 a.m. And that's a problem. That's just those two facts right there. And the area that she lived, the homes and the properties that they own are pretty large. The properties are kind of secluded. In other words, they're in a rural area. So they're not, there's no street lights, that kind of thing. Where do we go from here? You know, I mean, you have a woman who's having trouble getting around. She probably uses a walker or a cane, 84 years old. That's pretty common. You have somebody that has health problems. She has medication that she's supposed to take, life-saving medication. I don't know if it's been reported that that medication is still in the home. I don't know that a kidnapper would necessarily know or even give a shit to bring that with. And there has been a ransom note that was sent to TMZ. But in all honesty, I sort of discount that. So who's our suspect? Where do we turn from here? An 84-year-old woman to take them and take care of them and keep them alive is a fucking pain in the ass. You know, I mean, it's not easy. Same with, you know, like a disabled child. And I've been practicing law for almost 30 years. I've never once seen a kidnapping ransom case. I mean, this is not something that happens every day. And so where do you turn? Well, one of the things you turn to is the electronic data, first of all, you know, and it's usually somebody close to the vest, you know, somebody that knows them or has reason to know them or related to them, you know, like the husband's always an issue. Well, her husband died a long time ago, so he's not an issue. So who else? Who was the last person to see her alive? Was it the brother-in-law? As you can see here, creepy looking dude. Who knows? And one of the things that they can do is, you know, there are cell towers. You know, her cell phone works right in there. They'll pull all the cell phones that were working on those towers at that time. And if you ping on the cell phone towers, you know, it's suspicious if you turn your phone off, like in the Kroberger situation, and it's suspicious if you have it on. So it's like, but you're best off just to put it, leave it on and put it on some public transportation somewhere, like duct tape it under. Am I trying to tell you how to thwart the law? No. You look into the mind's eye of somebody who would try to abduct and do something with Nancy Guthrie. And why would you do this? Is it a financial gain or is it a grudge? It's probably one or the other. I mean, she certainly isn't going to be sex trafficked. I mean, who the hell would want that? I mean, I don't mean that in a way like it sounds, but that seems unlikely, right? Unless it's some creepy dude who's like somebody that did their you know, yard upkeep, or, you know, a handyman or a cleaner or somebody, you know, like that. You know, you have to kind of keep all that stuff in mind. Now, one of the things, so even though you smash the camera, there's still going to be some data on that camera, you know, because it's stored off site. It's in the cloud. You know, it's not like, okay, I got rid of the camera, I got rid of the footage. You know, my security stuff is right here on my phone, you know, and they left the phone there. So it would seem to me whoever approached the home should be seen on that camera. But whoever did approach knew enough to destroy the camera on the outside of the house and the other cameras that were around. So they knew that home, is my guess. They knew who they were going after. And how did they know that? So the house has been processed and it's been given back to the family. And one of the things that the cops are doing is they're waiting for that Nest footage to get to them. That's going to be huge because you're going to see who approached that door. You're going to see that. I would think. But are they covered? Are they disguised? You know, but you'll be able to tell, is that a man or a woman for sure. And this whole business of sending a ransom note to TMZ, that doesn't seem right to me.
I will say the letter begins by saying she is safe but scared. And they go on to say she knows exactly what the demand is.
Why would you send it to TMZ? You know, that seems to me like some dude that's, hey, I know how we can get some money. Let's go send something to TMZ. I mean, why would you do that? And so you got one of two motives, really. Either personal and vindictive or, you know, financial. So whoever is doing this either knows that Savannah's the daughter, and that's her mom, and so there's a connection there, to get a payday, or it's somebody much closer, and money's not an issue, and it's just really kind of fuck you, bitch, and I'm going to do this to you, which is just tragic. It's just absolutely tragic. It's just that's the mindset of somebody that would go to the length of kidnapping somebody. I've had a couple kidnapping cases over my career, and they're pretty rare. People don't generally kidnap people. I remember I used to drive an ambulance, I told you, for a living, and I was in felony court, and all of a sudden I see this guy behind glass. He was in custody coming up, and it was a guy I used to drive an ambulance with. He was in a Target parking lot trying to get this lady, telling her he was law enforcement. They come into his car, he was going to abduct her. I mean, what the hell's wrong with you? And like this, you think you're all safe in your bed, and all of a sudden somebody comes in and routs you out of your bed and takes you away. That should not happen. When you look at the facts that the FBI is involved, and you've got I'm sure a profile analyst working the case, and you got the Pima County Sheriff, and they're getting a ton of leads, and they're not leaving anything off the table. But when you look at it, what have they offered? Like $2,500 for a reward? I thought that was just incredibly low. It's like, okay, she's worth $40 million or something like that, and you're offering $2,500. I mean, she's not offering that. I think that's coming from the county, but that seems a little silly. Oh, $2,500, make it $5,000, and I'll find out where she is. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So the motivation behind this kidnapping will kind of lead you to who did this, obviously. And so, I've seen a little bit of stuff on the brother-in-law who looks a little hippie-ish and tries to sell jewelry or whatever he does. And supposedly, and this is unconfirmed, but he was the last one to see her alive, right? These are whodunit type of things. This is why I like criminal law, because this is like, okay, now let's get down to the nitty-gritty and figure out what happened here. And where do you start? You start in and you work out, right? And so they process the home. That tells you there probably wasn't a whole lot of evidence in the home. Not a lot, nothing taken except for her. Nothing destroyed except for things that would identify the kidnapper, right? Blood inside and outside the home. As time goes by, as each hour clicks, as each day elongates into more uncertainty, the odds of her coming back safely diminish. And my heart just goes out to this family. I mean, what would you do if they took your mom? I mean, she took my fucking mom.
I think she was dead before she left the house. I think they took her out. Then they took the body and buried the body somewhere. Body's probably within a couple of miles from that house. I'm willing to make a bet on that. Right? Nobody's going to travel no 5, 6, 8. That body is around that outside of the house, buried, because it doesn't make sense, right? Now, the thing that we're teetering on is the motive. What would be the motive? So, like he said, two things I do agree with is either financial or grudge. I don't know about grudge. Who would have a grudge on an 84-year-old lady? Like, what beef do they have with an 84-year-old lady? Right? And you're talking about Pima, Arizona? Who the fuck goes down there? Right? Ain't nobody's going to Pima to kidnap nobody unless they're worth billions of dollars, right? And typically people who got millions of dollars are going to have security. They're going to have security. No, you ain't going to be able to get into the house like that. Just go in there, and obviously that lady was at home alone. Son-in-law dropped her off, said he watched her as she scooted into the house. Sounds pretty suspicious. Why would you not escort her into the house? 84-year-old lady, you're going to escort her into the house. That's my mother-in-law, my mother, whoever. I'm escorting them all the way in the house. So he dropped her off. She was at her daughter's house. So that tells me it's a conspiracy, right? This seems like a conspiracy. Maybe they mismanaged their money. Grandma got mother-in-law got maybe a multi-million-dollar insurance policy, and she made her daughter the beneficiary of it. Savannah is probably the beneficiary of this insurance policy. I mean, $1 million. Hey, $1 million, $1 million, baby. Right? $1 million, $1 million. When you have mismanaged your money, overspent, made some bad investments, right? You're down to about $50K in your account. And the bills are 5 bands plus a month. Yeah, I know she was a news lady, but doesn't mean she didn't make bad. Maybe she mismanaged her money, did some bad things with her money, and she needed a quick lick. And who would be the primary? Who would be the easy lick? The grandmother, right? 84 years old. She got probably maybe $1 million, maybe 2 or 3 insurance policies. No, old people were 84. They put a life insurance policy on herself. Yeah, she probably got like $1 million. Maybe the daughter took one out on her. I don't know. Somebody took one out on her, and they're waiting the 30 days. The 30 days got to survive the 30-day investigation, and the daughter gets cashed out. She's leaving that money to her daughter and that house. So who owns that house? Right? So that's assets. That's an asset. So there is definitely, money motivation here. I think if you find out Savannah, you check her bank accounts, right? Her husband, that they mismanaged their money, that they made some bad investments. They probably lost a lot of money. Probably living above their means. And they need a quick shot in the vein. $1 million and a house. They could probably get the house, because I'm sure her mother had a will, right? And an insurance policy. Hey, so $1 million insurance policy, probably $500,000 house. That's 1.5 mil. That's 1.5 mil. That's enough to kill. It's America. That's enough to kill. And it was obviously it was an easy lick. They plotted this shit out for months. I'm just. This is just my theory. I don't have no evidence, but I'm just using a theoretical point, right? It's obvious the evidence is right before us. An 84-year-old lady who nobody knows, who's living in Pima County, which that's the middle of nowhere in Arizona, right? They went in that house, took her out, hit her in the head with something, took her out quick. Maybe they stabbed her or something, whatever. They took her out. 2 of them. So the son-in-law probably dropped her off, made it look like he was going to drive off somewhere down the street, probably parked maybe 300-400 yards away, so the cameras or neighbors couldn't see. Maybe it's some sort of hideaway. Called and then maybe her husband, because obviously it was 2 men who carried her out. 2 gentlemen, strong men, right? Husband came around the back door. He opened the back door. Husband came in the back door. She was already deceased. They carried her out the back door. That's why you got blood in the front and the back. I mean, probably some blood was on him when he went out the front door. Well, they carried her out the back because they didn't want to carry the. Who's going to carry a body out the front door? That's not smart. That's not smart. So they're going to go out the back door, right? Carried her all the way to the freaking car or whatever thing they had, a van or whatever they had, and took her about 3-4 miles out in the middle of nowhere and buried that body. They probably already had a grave dug. Yeah, they planned this shit out. They planned this shit out easy. Arizona, come on, you can bury a body fucking anywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if they go back in the next couple of days and bring dogs and have them, that the dogs try to sniff her out somewhere. I'm pretty sure they went about 3-4 miles away, maybe 5 miles away, buried the body. Probably buried the body in Arizona. That's the top of Arizona, in the woods. They probably went far. Yeah, and now all they got to do is wait 30 days for the investigation. And the house is probably in a will left to her daughter, Savannah. She's going to get that. She'll immediate sell, put the for sale sign up for that. And the $1 million insurance policy, she going to cop that. That's $1.5 million right there. So she probably sell the house. Probably sell it for $300,000 to get off of it fast. Probably gonna sell that quick because she need cash. She need liquid cash. This is the hit. This is what white people do. Like, this is their thing, right? This is their thing. They know how to do this shit. So I'm thinking this is only obvious because ain't no kidnappers is gonna come, strange dudes. First of all, they're not gonna smash no cameras because they're going to have masks on. They're going to be covered up. Number one. Two, you're in the Pima. Come on, ain't nobody there. So you gotta know your way around there. You know, and for what though? What would they're not getting that insurance policy money? Who they ransoming? Her daughter? They don't even know that's her mother. So I highly doubt that she was kidnapped. I think she was took out in the house. They took her out that house. That's what happened. They took her out. It's all about the money. It's all about the Benjamins. It's all about the Benjamins. This is in-house, no doubt. They knew the cameras were. Easy money in their mind, right? Easy money. The question now is, did they make any mistakes? Did they make a big mistake? And that's the job of the FBI and the state to figure out, did they make a mistake? They came back to the house. They came back to the house and researched the house. So the police department suspects it's foul play. They probably most likely think family is involved in this. Yeah, no, they might be. It might go unsolved, Mello, but I don't know, man. They own it. But if they didn't make no mistakes, yeah, it's going to go unsolved. But right now, all eyes are on the Guthrie family. They're under the microscope. No doubt. And, you know, they couldn't open, man. This is America. People, for the love of money, is the root to all evil. So, just believe, you know, Savannah is getting that money. And then she did a case talking about she will pay the ransom. Come on. So So they probably, one of the family members sent them damn ransom letters to TMZ to throw the police off the scent, right? That's what the ransom letters were, to throw the police off the scent. Who's doing some dumb shit like that? No, this ain't 1960. Ransom letter. Nigga, they got technology. They got drones. They're going to track that money. They can fingerprint that letter. They will catch your ass so fast. Even if they send the money, that money's gonna be traced. All the money's traceable. All the money's traceable. So I don't know who would be that dumb to send a ransom letter. Nigga, this is 2026. You can't even go on a run in Mexico anymore. They're coming to get you. They're coming to get you. America's very high kidnapping. Nobody does kidnapping no more. Nobody does that. Who does that? Most of your kidnappers are outside the country, right? Like in Colombia, in Mexico, because they're sex trafficking out there, right? It might be, maybe the Mexican mafia, but they're going after young women. They're going after young women so they can sell them on a prostitution market. 84-year-old women, there's no market for her. Maybe one person of a billion? Nah.
What are you doing taking my mom? There's certain crimes I understand, like Michael Milken, insider trading and junk bonds and all this other stuff. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Michael Milken, that was back in the 80s. Shooting a guy because he's in bed with your wife. I mean, okay, I get it. Attacking somebody because they've attacked your family member. You can understand those types of crimes. But I don't understand stuff like this. It's so high risk. I mean, if this is financially motivated, it's so high risk. And here's the thing. They're not telling us hardly anything, from the sheriff's standpoint. Okay. And why aren't they telling us much? Because they don't want the person who has her or who took her to know what they know. Okay. So when you hear him answering questions of the press, he's not really volunteering a whole lot of information. And deservedly so, because if you do that, you may inadvertently tip off, and give some clues to the kidnapper. They'll get some ring information. They'll get some cell tower information. I think that's going to be your key, because remember what happened with Brian Kohlberger? I mean, all of a sudden his phone's off in a certain period and then back on, and then was right during the murders. It's like you were supposed to be a PhD student in criminology, and you couldn't get that right.
The ransom note that was sent out there, obviously every lead in this case we are taking extremely serious.
But not everyone is presented to the family. Why this one?
Because this was the ransom that came in and it had facts associated with a deadline, with a monetary value they were asking for. So at that point,
what were some of those facts, if you can, because there's been a lot of speculation, as you know, if you can set the record straight.
Yeah, the ransom itself, one talked about an Apple Watch and one talked about a floodlight. We're not going to go into specifics. It's very important that we keep this investigation moving forward, and we don't want to put more facts out there that others then can use to try to profit from this.
In this ransom note, and I guess there's more than one, sent to CNN and TMZ. And in the ransom note, they talk about receiving, a lot of money in Bitcoin, and thinking that there's no way to really trace the Bitcoin, but there is a way to trace the Bitcoin. It just defies some logic that you would kidnap an 84-year-old woman and thinking it would be successful. I mean, it's a high risk, low reward possibility that this is going to work out for them. I mean, and then you take a frail woman who's on medication, who could be, if all of a sudden she dies in their custody, now you got a murder on your hands. And, I suppose you could pretend like she's alive, but if you can't show signs of life, you don't get paid.
This comes after Today host Savannah Guthrie and her siblings Annie and Cameron made a tearful appeal for their mother's safe return via Instagram on the evening of February 4th.
We are ready to talk. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen.
You've seen the old movie footage, right? Where you hear somebody say, well, let me talk to so-and-so. Well, we're not going to. Well, then hang up, you know. But remember that movie Ransom with Mel Gibson? You know, give me back my son. I mean, what would you do? You would just fucking go ape shit. And I'm sure Savannah Guthrie is just absolutely beside herself with grief right now. How could you even walk? How could you even talk? How could you do anything? You know, if I were her, I'd be sitting up shop in her parents' house and her mom's house, and I wouldn't leave until I figured out what was going on. You know, the sheriff indicated that her life was in jeopardy, and they said so. You know, I think for a couple of reasons. One, she's been abducted. You know, so clearly she's going to be in jeopardy because of that, but also because of this medication issue. She's got some life-saving medication that she has to take every day, and if she doesn't, you know, it could be very very dramatic for her. They didn't.
So once again, who's going to kidnap an 84-year-old lady who can then die before they get the money? You got to show proof of life. So why would you take damaged goods? She might die before you even get a chance to ask for the money. But the question is, how much money are you asking for? Kidnapping is a lifer. That's a life sentence. And then she dies in your custody. That goes into special circumstances, which makes it a death penalty phase. Stupid. So I know, and kidnappers, most kidnappers are very intelligent. And they're not going to go in a target where that target can die on them, and they're not able to show proof of life. When you kidnap someone and you want ransom, you have to show proof of life. Why would you take an 84-year-old lady on medication and then she die on you? Now not only you thinking kidnapping, now you got a murder case. Oh yeah, they're giving you that body. They're giving you that body. You get that. Lock that in. Kidnapping, murder. So now once again, you're bringing in special circumstances, which means death penalty. So you're looking at death penalty, going on death row. Who's that motherfucking stupid? And if it was somebody who was desperate, let's hypothetically play a role. Let's just say they were that stupid, right? They were on drugs and they just needed some quick money. They wanted quick ransom. They would have made so many mistakes. It wouldn't have been this clean. They'd had them dudes caught in like hours, right? 2, 5, 10, 12 hours. You stupid. For smack you with these life sentences. But no, this has been 7 days, 8 days. Oh no, going on 8 days. So these people they have had to plan this out. So this is not some random cluckhead. This is not a gang. When you're talking about kidnapping is mostly a sophisticated organization. This was all your kidnappings, when it comes to ransoms, stuff like this, a sophisticated organizations which don't really exist in America, right? These organizations exist in South America, Mexico. They exist in other parts of the world, Russia, places like that. America, these organizations know this. Now you might got some Mexican mafias here, but they're not very rare. You hear people getting kidnapped for ransom. Now, and I'm talking about kidnapped for ransom. I'm being clear. Now, when you talk about sex trafficking, now that's everywhere, right? That's here, that's everywhere, it's every country. Where they get young girls, kidnap them, put them in the sex. But that doesn't really happen in America that much. That's still not heavy in America, right? Most of your kidnappings is in Mexico or South America for, they run a sex trade. But for ransom, when you talk about taking somebody and then trying to get money for somebody, this is out the country. This is not there's no organization that exists in America. Period. Because they go out of business, they wouldn't make no money. America's technology is too far advanced. So whoever did this, staged this. This is a what you call, they staged this. It's like more of a deflection, like send the police on this random thing, make it look like a kidnapping, appear to be a kidnapping, when it never was a kidnapping. She was dead as soon as they walked in the house. They took her out. They took her out when they got in that house, waited for their help to come in, and took her out the back door and buried that body.
Say this is they didn't comment one way or another whether they said this person was a threat to public safety. In other words, is this a more of a serial type situation, or is this a one-off, or is this, and usually these situations are somebody close to them, somebody that knew them, somebody that tried to either make a payday or take a revenge on somebody. And I think that's probably what we have here. I'm not going to go so far as to say it's the brother-in-law. I mean, I don't know anything about the brother-in-law. And it's just been bantered about that he's a possible suspect. But that's very easy to check, right? Where were you at 2 a.m.? Where was your cell phone? Well, your cell phone was at home? Okay. Where was your car? Everything's got a little digital electronic footprint, these days. Everything does. Your watch does, your Apple Watch does, your phone does, even your car these days. They can tell you where you were. It's almost Big Brotherish. But the one thing we don't have is in this area, which is a little more rural, there's no cameras. There's no traffic cams. Like by my house, they're all over the place. I had this murder case in North Minneapolis, and they had my client's car, which had very distinct rims on a white Cadillac. And they had him every fucking block that he went. They had him here, and here. And it's like, what do I do with that? Anyway, so that's just our little kind of update on the disappearance or the abduction of Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy.
We have received this alleged ransom letter involving Nancy Guthrie, and the other media outlets that obtained the same letter are in Tucson. It just has markers that the person who did this is in the area where Nancy is and either knows Nancy or has heard, Nancy's kind of a celebrity in the sense that her daughter is a big TV star. Welcome to the Two Angry Men podcast. Mark, as you know, we have received this alleged ransom letter involving Nancy Guthrie, and it is increasingly feeling to me like this is the real deal.
What are the earmarks of this thing that let you go to the point where you put out there that you thought it was real? Because that, to me, is really, that almost validates the fact that there's something to it.
Yeah, well, there are a number of things. One is the two items mentioned in this letter that presumably nobody would know unless they were part of that scene. One is the Apple Watch. Now, it's not a big thing that anybody knew that Nancy had an Apple Watch, a white Apple Watch, because she's been photographed with that with Savannah. But what's interesting in the letter is where it's placed in the house. And they mentioned that specifically. I found that interesting. The second thing is a destroyed floodlight. I know the FBI, I think they said damaged. The way it's written in the letter is destroyed. And that felt almost aggressive on the part of the writer. And, as if maybe that person did it so there wouldn't be any illumination. So that was.
Can I ask one other question also? When you got this and you look at it, I can almost tell, at least I do my own triage when this comes in. Did it have any of the triage markings that you normally would see, which would indicate, I always say my 5150 hurdle, the single space, the run-ons, the things like this? What was the character of it without giving it away?
Oh, I'll talk about that. Let me just finish up on these two items. So I didn't know, whether the placement was correct. And at the time, nobody knew about the floodlight. So I called the sheriff's department immediately, gave them the letter. And then a couple hours later, the FBI called. And I thought, well, the FBI is calling for a reason, because I figured if those items were not legit, the ones that were mentioned, the FBI wouldn't even bother with it. But they did. They called and they asked a ton of questions and wanted to find out about the origin of this email, which we can't tell them. And I don't think they've figured it out either. But as for whether this is a crazy person who wrote it, yes, we get tons of crazy people writing these. This is exactly the opposite. This is a well-constructed, structured, layered letter that has a beginning, middle, and end. It is grammatically all correct. Spelling is correct. It's not AI. You can tell whoever wrote this didn't throw it together in 5 minutes. And it is, I think, written by an intelligent and probably well-educated person. That's the way it reads to me. So it's the exact opposite of that, which put my antenna up even higher.
Right.
Now, the other thing that, look, I want to get into.
Does the letter itself make a ransom demand? And if so, what kind of currency?
Well, they're asking for it in Bitcoin, and they gave a Bitcoin address, and it's a legit address. The problem with Bitcoin is you just cannot find out who it's going to. And so,
well, they've got, that's where I push back a little bit, because I know from actually 2 cases I have right now that they don't want you to know this, but the government now has ways. They've got a front row seat, for lack of a better term. They've told me it's like watching a marathon. They can watch it go as it goes down the chain, so to speak, and they can generally follow it to a wallet.
Well, see, the first part of that I believe to be true, and that's what I've heard as well, that they can follow the chain. What I'm told is they still can't determine who it's going to. But maybe you're right. I don't.
Yeah, they say that. Based on what I've seen in government discovery, I'm not buying that at all. I think they now know, and I think they've got access to digital wallets and things of that nature. I think they can trace all that. It reminds me of when they went and got Maduro. Nobody had ever heard of that kind of eardrum disabling kind of weapons that we have. I can tell you from discovery in other cases that they have a sophisticated ability to track this stuff. And by the way, I think it's one of the reasons that blockchain technology and all of that is actually being embraced.
If you're right, then it makes even a better case for the Guthrie family to pay the money, even without proof of life, if indeed the feds could track it down, arrest the person, and recover the money. If you're right.
Well, that's why I've had this situation, not often, but a couple of times. And, normally it is in a ransomware kind of a situation or cyber warfare, things of that nature. But in this case, I would be surprised if they weren't engaged in some way, shape, or form. I think that's also why the FBI was so curious and questioning you and trying to figure it all out.
Well, I put my IT team on the phone with the FBI, and they spent a fair amount of time talking. And my IT team said that they reached a dead end in trying to figure out where this came from. And it's very
well, that I would believe, because the sophistication of routing the emails through kind of a washing machine, so to speak, I think is a lot more sophisticated than what the Bitcoin tracing is.
And you may be right in the Bitcoin, I don't know, but in terms of the tracing the email, we couldn't do it. And my sense from the conversation, and I will say, this is just above my skill set to understand what they were all talking about, because it was very technical, but it sounded like everybody was stymied in terms of figuring that out.
Did they get a location where they hit a dead end?
We thought there was a location, and then it was so sophisticated that kind of blew up. So they don't have a location. They do not have a location. At least at the time we spoke with them, they didn't. And I don't know that they're going to be able to. My IT team thinks they can't. This episode is sponsored by Incogni. Personal information is more accessible than ever.
So we have a paper trail, right? Which nobody can follow. Quite ingenious, right? This is, to me, just a very well thought out plan by the family to get that 1.5 mil. They get that house, and that I'm willing to bet that she has a life insurance policy paid to the daughter
Legal information that used to be accessible in context is now scraped by data brokers, repackaged and sold. And that can affect hiring, insurance, or there is a reference in the letter. Obviously, there's a money demand. And if the money demand is met by the Guthries, then it triggers something. And it triggers the return of Nancy within a certain period of time. So, and we're talking hours. And in terms of that time, it's interesting because we took the maximum time they gave. So pick a number and say that she'll be returned within X hours. We know what that X is because it's in the letter. I'm not going to say.
And then what did you do, a radius?
What we did was this. We figured that whoever's got Nancy, they're not going to fly back to Tucson because you're not going to get on an airplane and show ID and everything else, obviously. So they're going to drive. And they're not going to drive at 100 miles an hour because they don't want to get stopped for speeding, because if they get stopped for speeding, it's over. So they'd probably go about 60 miles an hour. So we looked at the 60 miles an hour and took the longest distance, and it's about a 700-mile radius. And it basically includes much of the western United States. And, you know, that's still a huge area, but at least it's something. In other words, it's not the whole United States. It's not Mexico or outside of the, well, it could be actually.
How'd you triangulate to Tucson?
The
Because
way-
that's interesting to me, because, you know, there's another crypto related incident at Tucson simultaneous to this, that at least that's kind of the scuttlebutt that's going around.
I'm glad you asked that. The way we traced it back to Tucson is because that's what the person who wrote the ransom demand said, that we will return her to Tucson within X number of hours. So we used Tucson as the center and then went out the number of hours maximum it would take to drive. And that's how we created the circle. And so at least there is something here that within that circle, they can be especially vigilant if this is real. So it's something, because up to this point, there's really nothing, but at least the circle gives you some way of focusing on this. And the reason I say that this is somebody in the Tucson area who wrote this thing is, I mean, think about it. Does it make sense somebody's watching the Today Show and says, wow, there's Savannah Guthrie. She's rich and famous. I'm going to go find a relative. And they find her in Tucson. Or does it make more sense that somebody in Tucson says, oh, Nancy Guthrie, her daughter's famous. I know Nancy Guthrie, or I heard of Nancy Guthrie. Her daughter's famous. It's Savannah Guthrie, and she's rich and famous. It feels like it's the latter rather than the former.
And by the way, also, does this person reference anything besides a watch, like a pacemaker or any other kind of don't try to find this or don't try to trace this or anything else that's indicative or consistent with information that was not publicly reported at the time?
They don't mention pacemaker. They do say this will be the only communication and the police aren't going to be able to help you. And they have 2 deadlines, one of which is already passed. The second one more consequential, which is Monday at 5. And
are they for money? Are they for, do you have to do something when you say a deadline of giving money?
Yeah, the money changed yesterday at 5.
Right.
The Monday deadline is different and more consequential.
Right. And so that's why I suspect that something was paid and they're tracing it.
I don't think so.
That makes some sense. Why do you not think so?
Because they are making pleas to return her, and the sheriff is asking people for help, and they're asking for proof of life. I got to say that if I were in their shoes, I would totally understand waiting, because proof of life is going to be really important. This letter says she's okay but scared, and that she knows what's in this ransom letter. This is what the letter itself says, that Nancy knows. And so, they're obviously trying to put pressure on emotional pressure on the family with that. But,
but didn't the FBI contact you prior to the first deadline?
Yes. We
Okay.
we got the letter on Tuesday, and we talked to the FBI on Tuesday.
Yeah, I suspect, complete speculation, that they can walk and chew gum at the same time. They can be making public pleas. They can be go down that route, which they should be doing. But at the same time, they can be testing out various things to try to, the writer of this, and you'd want proof of life, but the FBI, the investigative technique might be to test out the first deadline and to see if that is proof of somebody that is other than just a looky-loo copycat or somebody who's trying to profit on this.
See, if I were running this, I would tell them, don't pay right now. Let the deadline pass and demand proof of life, because whoever wrote this, if it's real, they want the money. That's their end game. They want the money. And if the more they have time to think, I got to show proof of life in order to get the money, the more likely they're going to get it before the Monday deadline. So the first deadline, it makes a difference financially, but it's not going to make a difference in terms of Nancy Guthrie's life. And so if you really want that proof of life, which I totally understand, you wait and you see if they feel the pressure to ultimately show something, an audio tape, a video, a something. And believe me, we're looking at our inbox, our tip line, every minute.
I was going to say, how are you? What are you getting? What kind of quantity of incoming?
We always get incoming, but we haven't gotten anything else, obviously, from whoever wrote that letter. And the other 2 media outlets that obtained the same letter are both local TV affiliates in Tucson, and that again tells me that whoever wrote this is Tucson based, because why would they send it to a local, and how would they even know the call letters?
What affiliation of Tucson are the other 2? NBC, ABC, CBS? What are they?
One is called KOLD, and I don't know whether it's ABC.
I would interesting if it was an NBC affiliate.
I honestly, I should have looked at that and I didn't. But they're local affiliates nonetheless. And the point being, they're not sending it to the other nationals. They send it to us, but they send it to 2 locals. It's making, I'll tell you, it just has markers that the person who did this is in the area where Nancy is and either knows Nancy or has heard, Nancy's kind of a celebrity in the sense that her daughter is a big TV star. And so that's kind of where my head is. But boy, they are in a rough position. We're talking Friday afternoon. They got till Monday on this thing. And again, they don't know for sure whether this note is real, but the way authorities are now talking about it, they seem to think it is, or at least it's their best hope.
So is it generic to the 3 media outlets, including TMZ? Or specific, each one gets it specifically? One document that is addressed to all 3 and it's the same, or is it tailored to each one?
Tailored to each one.
Okay, so that's interesting also.
Why? Why is that interesting to you?
Because they have picked recipients who are going to target certain audiences, and they know a demographic that they're trying to speak to or that they're going to get it out. It's interesting to me that they went 1 international TMZ and then they went 2 local. I get what you're saying about that it's indicative of Tucson. I think that it's also consistent with the idea that she's still in that area.
I'll tell you something I haven't really talked about, and I'm going to only pose this as a hypothetical. What if it went to the local stations before it went to TMZ, and they were waiting to see if it got out? And
I think that's exactly. I think that's, you read my mind. I was going to say whether it was tailored or not, because is there anything in the one that goes to TMZ which leads you to believe sequentially you were the last out of the 3?
I can't say, but I'm just raising it as a hypothetical.
Yeah, that would be my guess. They thought that saying it local would get some traction. They got no traction, and they went to TMZ.
That's a good theory.
That makes a whole lot of sense to me. I don't think that necessarily means that it's, authentic in the sense that it's coming from the person, but for somebody who was trying to gain attention or trying to make this a profitable criminal endeavor, that makes some sense. That rings consistent. They thought if they just got it. And that's why I asked about the local affiliate. I wanted to see if they sent it to an NBC affiliate first, thinking that the NBC affiliate, because Savannah is with NBC, that would have triggered a national traction of it.
KOLD is a CBS affiliate. There is a second one. I don't know what the affiliate is on that second one. I got to tell you something. One of the first things that popped into my head, Nancy is not in great health. She has a pacemaker. She also has high blood pressure, and she has medications that she really needs. And so my feeling was that, the place to go if you're law enforcement is a pharmacy, because you want to see if somebody got a prescription that would match what she was taking recently. When somebody got a prescription during that time frame, that few days, because they need to keep her alive. If they feel like there ever was a chance they would have to show proof of life, and she didn't have her meds, I would think that there would be pressure on whoever took her to get those meds, and they're not going to go back to her house. So the only thing they can do is see if they could land a prescription. And if they land a prescription, there's going to be some record of somebody getting that prescription who may not have gotten it before on those critical couple of days.
Well, have you run down the pacemaker angle? Because what at least is being reported is the pacemaker stopped at around 2 a.m.
It was disconnected from the Apple Watch. Right.
Yeah. So it was disconnected. Just because it was disconnected does not mean that there aren't ways to make contact with it. And I just wonder if that's one of the things that they're exploring right now. And because disconnecting from the Apple Watch is one thing, but disconnecting from being able to be picked up is a completely and wholly different situation.
Yeah. I want to get back to the sophistication of whoever did this, that if this note is real, if it is a real ransom note and this person has Nancy Guthrie, it is, again, really well crafted and layered. And then you look at the crime scene and, this person knew to disconnect the cameras. This person knew where to go. I mean, this person, I would assume when they say the floodlight was destroyed, if I walked in the backyard and I already saw a damaged floodlight, I would just simply say it's a damaged floodlight in the letter.
Or you could say broken.
Broken. When you say destroyed, that feels to me like this person destroyed it because it was on and they didn't want to be illuminated. And so by using the word destroyed as opposed to damage, that makes me feel like they destroyed it because it was on and they didn't want to be captured, and they had gone to great lengths to disconnect the camera. And we know that somebody showed up, but not on video, at sometime around 1 a.m. So this person knew his or her stuff. That seems
it's
pretty
obviously
clear.
Somebody's familiar with the location, whether it's the note or was separate and apart. If the note is not authentic, somebody still knew certain things. I mean, by the way, you would have to know about the pacemaker and the Apple Watch together, unless it was just happenstance and somebody decided, I'm going to get rid of the Apple Watch because that has some kind of a find my device or share my device feature. And so they did not want that. But the pacemaker to me is a significant fact that I'm sure they are following up on.
Yeah, the other significant fact I think they must have already followed up on, and probably it didn't yield much, is that because this person was so careful, to me, they cased that joint before they did it. And if they cased the joint, they wouldn't have done it a month before. They would have done it sometime in a narrower time frame. That that you go to all the neighbors, like a wide swath, and you ask, did you see a car in the area that didn't belong? Did you see? That would be that. I mean, that.
Well,
could,
the other thing that,
and they may have surveillance.
Right. So you take the surveillance cameras, but also you go to the cell towers that are in the immediate vicinity and you check, 3 hours, 4 hours before, 5 hours after that time period. You see what's pinging, where it's pinging, and you can do some geofencing and reverse engineering of what numbers, if there was a phone that was active at the time. If these people are sophisticated enough to have not taken a phone into the location, that's also interesting, and actually would probably support your idea that this was highly intelligent and well crafted, and give it some you tilt towards it being more authentic.
Okay, so I have a question for you, and it's more of a psychological question. And since you've dealt with cases like this, this is the one thing I'm just fascinated by. So Savannah Guthrie and her brother and sister have all kind of delivered these emotional pleas to release their mother. And they have really tried to pull at the heartstrings on the surface, you would think, of the person who took her, and to talk about what a wonderful mother she is, what a wonderful person she is, how, her grandkids love her. The cynical me says that's not going to work on somebody who kidnapped this woman, because they know what they've done. So what is the purpose of that? I'm not saying it's not authentic, because it is.
It's clearly authentic. It's clearly comes from a place which is, I don't want to say cathartic, because cathartic,
but it's real. It's just real.
But it's real. It's real. But what law enforcement, why they do this is they don't know who it is yet. So they have to keep all their options open. One of those options is that it's somebody who knows or has had prior contact, and that it is not somebody who is cold-hearted, calculated, and targeted because it has no interaction or prior contact. If it is somebody who has prior contact, who's got some mental health issues, or has got some kind of connection and is motivated by something else. They're hoping that this kind of penetrates that kind of fog.
Yeah, I hear you. It's hard to believe. I mean, when you do something like this, you know the impact it's going to have on the family. An 84-year-old woman, somebody who's clearly close to Savannah and the other kids. So you know it. Maybe you're right but I just don't see how. I'm just trying to look for another reason.
Well, let me tell
why
you
they
this.
went
It
public
goes
that
back
way.
to what we said before. The complete speculation, I'll preface it, then I've got to go. But they may not have, and I've seen a lot of people comment on this, the kind of traction and the exponential coverage this has received. I don't think anybody would have predicted that, even if you're, the mastermind, media mastermind. This has taken on the life of its own that has eclipsed other stories that are out there that seemingly, if you looked at, are bigger and more consequential. And I don't mean that in a cold-hearted way. I just mean if you're trying to do an analysis of it.
So can I give you a theory?
Yeah.
So my theory is that when they went public the way they did, law enforcement probably knows this is not going to make the kidnapper say, oh my God, I'll return her. But if anybody in that kidnapper's world knows what this person did, it would play on them. In other words,
Yes,
they would squeal.
I have no doubt your theory is right. I mean, and it also is part of the wide net. Clearly, you never know who's going to turn on who. So somebody might have it might tug at their heartstrings. Okay. I agree with that.
Okay, we have two. Hold on. Yeah, I got 2 minutes with you. You promised me that. So in 2 minutes, let's talk about how do you play this out through Monday? What does law enforcement do? What does the Guthrie family do?
Oh, they pay. I think there's no question, but that you pay. They've got the, I think, sophisticated ability to trace where it goes. You don't want to play around, whether it is this or any other note. I'm sure they're doing they've got profilers in here. They've got people who've analyzed your note. They've got people who've analyzed the other tips. They are casting a wide net.
So you pay the money and hope, even though you have no proof of life.
I think you do. Yes, I think you do. I mean, it's an impossible situation.
If the kidnapper really does have Nancy Guthrie and believes that they are completely anonymous, what skin it is off their teeth to get an audio of Nancy Guthrie saying something where it's not AI. It's like, Savannah, I remember, here's what I gave you for your last birthday, or something that the public wouldn't know, that AI wouldn't know. So you just have her do an audio of something like that, because then you're going to get the money. I mean, if that's their end game and they really do have Nancy, wouldn't that person give them some proof of life? Because that's where you cash in.
Yeah, but we may not know that. We may not know that, number one. Number two, they may not. And if they do, the people who took her may have this in the back of their mind that is how we have traditionally, we meaning law enforcement, traditionally have traced people by sound, by where it is, by other kinds of metadata.
So doesn't it give you a little bit of pause about the legitimacy of the letter if the person wouldn't do something that simple and untraceable to secure the money, which is their point in the first place? I mean,
I agree. And I'm not embracing it. I'm just running through it. At this point, you do everything you can. Law enforcement's got to be full bore on this.
Okay, you got to run to court. You got to do what I do.
I got to run to court.
But you got to do what I do, where I don't have to run to court.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. I got to wear my suit and tie. Someday I'll grow up to be Harvey Levin. Bye.
I'll see you.
Well, what do we have here? So, we can go through this with a fine tooth comb. Obviously this is in-house crime. Obviously, right? People are sending ransom in crypto. We have busted cameras or destroyed camera devices. We have blood on the front and the back door. We also have a second search of the home of Nancy's home, right? So it's obviously and for sure that somebody, whoever did this particular crime, had a great knowledge of everything about the area, what the cameras were at, everything to make the move. But who would have that type of who hangs out with an 84-year-old woman? 84-year-old woman ain't got no young friends. So, and somebody to pull this off, right, had to be pretty young and strong, definitely. So we can assume that this is in-house because been 7 days, that's pretty good, right? That means they thought this shit out for like 6-7 months. I'm sure she has a life insurance policy on it. Maybe millions, who knows, right? Plus that house, right? That house is a house. So, I'm sure the daughter's gonna inherit that. So we have somebody goes in the home. I think they did her right away. I think they immediately took her out. Nobody's going to kidnap an 84-year-old lady who's on her last leg. That's like a double homicide. Kidnapping and murder. That's death penalty. So ain't nobody's gonna do that for that amount of money. What? Crypto? Well, how much in crypto? 60, 70 million? What are we talking about? For this type of case? But once again, there are no, these people don't exist in America. There are no sophisticated ransom kidnapping people in America. It just that's why you've never heard of it in the last 50 years. This was a crime they committed back in the 60s, 50s, to 40s, 2026, ain't nobody doing that shit. Not in America. Now we can talk about Europe, we could talk about South America, Colombia, we could talk about Mexico. I mean, we could talk about other countries, yeah. But in America, there is no sophisticated organization that's going around kidnapping 84-year-old women and it's just too high risk because you kidnap her, she might die on you. She might die before you get in the car. Could die from a heart attack, high sugar, who knows, diabetes. She got so many complications. So and how are they going to make their money if she dies? The family's going to want proof of life. Audio, video. So, like I said, that's why ain't nobody going to do that. You're kidnapping an 84-year-old lady who might die on you in the process, which will ruin all your money. And not only do you get a potential kidnapping, you got a kidnapping, now you got a murder charge. So you talk about the death penalty. Automatically going to kick in. Old white lady in Pima, you're getting a death penalty, nigga. Ain't nobody taking that type of risk for that little bit of money. I think her daughter's a broadcaster, but she ain't worth no 70, 80 million. She ain't worth no gang of money like that. Now, if we were talking about maybe Jeff Bezos or, this was Bill Gates' mom, okay, now we can have the conversation. Now we can have the conversation. But we're talking about, her daughter makes probably 100-some thousand a year. She's probably got a little bit of money saved up. Not that much. So this is definitely not no sophisticated organization. No sophisticated organization is going to invest this type of resources into, because you got to most likely, if this is an organization, it's going to come with a lot of risk, low reward. It doesn't make sense. So my thing is definitely in-house. So let's play it out. The son-in-law drops the grandmother off at the house. He then makes a statement to the police. He dropped her off and watched her waited till she walked in her house. Then, sometime later, at around 1 or 2 in the morning, somebody comes in the house, destroys the cameras, destroys all the equipment, gets this old lady who's probably going to die any minute, and kidnaps her and takes her where? To some, let's just say a storage. And now, America is 2026. They're very sophisticated, right? You got to now show proof of life to secure the payment. Then, let's just say crypto. Crypto maybe can't track it, right? But how much are you asking for? Right? They only go pay so much. I'm 100% sure that the police, the FBI told the family to go up there and say they will pay. So I'm 100% sure that the cops know they can, whatever the payment's going to be, they can trace it. I'm 100% sure about that. If they couldn't, they would not tell the family to go up there and make them type of say, oh yeah, we can pay. If you turn our mother, we could pay. What they told them is, we want to hear from you. They want proof of life, and go from there. Now, let's talk about what really happened. So this is what I believe happened. I ain't gonna say it's really happened. This is speculation. I'm speculating. I'm just getting into it. I believe the son-in-law dropped the grandmother off, right? Escorted her into the house, bust her in her shit, killed her immediately. Took all her little pacemaker, little thing, the Apple Watch pacemaker, made sure that they disconnected that. Then, after he did that, right, he probably went out and destroyed the camera in the front, and that's where the blood came from. Probably, maybe when he did it. So the blood, when the results come back, we'll see. We're gonna see. Maybe because there's blood on them somewhere on that front porch. So he went out, destroyed the camera. Bam. Waited for his compadre, whoever was, parked down the street. Maybe somebody was parked a ways down so that they couldn't be seen by neighbors. Because I'm sure neighbors got cameras too. I'm sure neighbors got cameras. There's not everybody got, I don't know how far the neighbors are apart, but I'm sure the neighbors got cameras around their homes. So they then carried her body to a location, buried her, and boom. A few days later, or a day later, they make the call. Hey, we went to my mom. We don't know where she's at. Boom. Now they got to wait 30 days. 30 days. I think is 30. 90-day investigation. Did they get the daughter gets the house? Because the mother has a will, right? The mother has a will and an insurance policy. That's what I'm thinking, right? Because hey, maybe they made some bad investments. Their money wasn't right no more. Maybe the husband's a gambler. Who knows, right? And they needed something, a quick money grab to put them, shot in a vein, put them back on point. And it's simple, take the mother out. Take the mother out.
TMZ and its founder, Harvey Levin, have been reporting the story closely, regularly breaking news on the kidnapping. I just spoke to the man himself, executive producer of TMZ, Harvey Levin. Harvey, thank you so much for being here. Tell me the very latest.
Well, there is a second note that was sent, and the way it's being reported, it has many of the markings of the first note. The first note we received as well, and it's the same note that the local station got. So the second note does not include any kind of ransom demand, according to KOLD, the station that got it. It has sensitive information in there. So, Michael, look, I'm going to speculate at this point, but the note we got said, we're not getting in touch with anybody anymore. Here's the demand. That's it. But the family came out and said, we need proof of life. So I would think that in this letter, maybe it includes something that tells the family that this person who wrote the letter has Nancy Guthrie. That could be something that no one would know except the family. It could be something as simple as, what's the last birthday present Nancy gave Savannah? It could be something involving her medical condition, because that seems highly relevant right now, given the fact that she had high blood pressure, she has a pacemaker, and that she needs her medication. So it could be something like this. The reporter from KOLD suggested there was something in there that was somewhat alarming, and it could have to do with her medical condition. I don't know. But they are clearly trying to show, yeah, we are the people who have it. We are the real deal. And I don't think it's much of a coincidence that they rushed out to the house and did a search shortly after receiving that second letter.
Harvey, I've been watching you all week, and I think you're doing a hell of a job covering this, but there's so much that doesn't make sense to me. Not the least of which is, and maybe I watch too much television or have seen too many movies, why go through media outlets? Why go through TMZ? Why not go directly to the family? Surely you've thought about that.
I have. And, sometimes you go to the family and it says, the police aren't going to be able to help you. This person wanted this information. They knew we would transmit this to the police, and they knew KOLD would do the same thing. So, sometimes it's almost like a cat and mouse game. But Michael, whoever did this is really sophisticated. It is almost impossible to trace, where it came from. The Bitcoin address is real. This is a sophisticated person who wrote this letter, and it's somebody who's intelligent. This letter is constructed well. The one we received, it's layered. It is grammatically all correct. And I think this is a sophisticated, intelligent person who wrote this. I also think that this person is in the Tucson area, because, we actually looked at this. The first letter we got says that if you pay us the money, we will get you Nancy back to Tucson within a certain period of time. And if you look at that period of time and say they're going to drive 12 miles, 60 miles an hour, and it's going to take them all that time to get there, there'd be a 700-mile radius. I think it's a lot smaller than that. Why did they send two notes to KOLD? They have some connection to KOLD. It is the community television station of Tucson. And this person seems to have a connection to that station. So it feels like a local person. The other thing it feels like to me is
seems odd to me that somebody would be watching television one day and say, oh, wow, there's Savannah Guthrie. She's rich and famous. Let's find a relative. Seems more likely that somebody would know in the Tucson area, hey, that's Nancy Guthrie. Her daughter's really famous, and she's also rich. And it seems more likely it would be hatched from there. So one of the things I was thinking about this morning is I wouldn't be a bit surprised if the police are looking for a really intelligent person who is tech savvy, who has just gone missing or MIA for the last 6 days, and ask people within that range, you seen anybody like that? Because it's just feeling like it's a person like that, somebody who's smart, somebody who's tech savvy. It seems there's a connection to Tucson. So I don't know that that's the course they're going, but that just makes sense to me.
So Harvey Levin has read the note. I have not. I respect the fact that you're walking a fine line and you don't want to be too revelatory about it. I kind of have to yield to you when you say this is a sophisticated person, but here's something else I've been wondering from a distance. I get the Lindbergh baby. I get William Randolph Hearst's, granddaughter. I get Sinatra Jr. I don't get, and I don't mean any disrespect in raising this, I don't get Savannah Guthrie's mom. Like, who comes up with that as a caper?
But that's what I'm saying, that if it were just, I'm going to television and looking for a famous person, and I'll pick Savannah Guthrie, that makes no sense to me either. What I'm saying to you is, what if this person, who I think has a connection to Tucson, just happens to know, look, in a way, Nancy Guthrie, in Tucson, Nancy Guthrie, she has a really famous daughter. So it may be that somebody either knows Nancy Guthrie or knows of Nancy Guthrie. Oh, that woman lives in a nice house and her daughter is really famous. And so what I'm saying is it would be hatched not because, oh, I'm looking at Savannah Guthrie on TV. It would be hatched because somebody is saying, oh, I know Nancy Guthrie lives there. I know Nancy Guthrie's daughter is really famous. I know Nancy Guthrie's daughter has been on TV a long time and she's probably rich. Nancy Guthrie lives in a really nice house. That would be interesting. And that's the way it seems to me, the only thing that makes sense about the abduction.
Final question for Harvey Levin. It sounds to me like you're convinced the note you received is totally legit.
Look, I don't know that, but what I will say, Michael, is there are 2 items mentioned in the note, a white smartwatch, and people knew she had a smartwatch, but it was where it was placed that I don't think anybody knew. And the authorities were really interested in that because they called me, the FBI called me a couple hours after we sent it to the sheriff. Second thing is, they didn't just say like a damaged floodlight. They said a destroyed floodlight. That word destroyed is really interesting to me because you just happen to see a broken light. You'd say it was a broken light, maybe a damaged light. But when you say destroyed, that seems to be an act they're talking about. So again, maybe I'm overreading this, but the way when somebody says a destroyed light, it may be they destroyed it, because maybe it was illuminated and they don't want to be seen. So I just think the word destroyed, and by the way, nothing was out that there was a damaged or destroyed light at the time we got the letter. So those 2 things were markers. And based on what the KOLD reporter said yesterday, it sounds like they mentioned something else that would show that they were familiar with Nancy's house. So do I know that it's a legitimate ransom letter? No. Are there markers that suggest it might be? I think the answer is yes. And I think pretty clearly at this point, the authorities are taking it seriously.
Final question, and this time I mean it. Is the deadline Monday one of harm will come to her if you don't do X?
The only thing I'm going to say is it is profoundly consequential.
Okay. Harvey, thank you.
I just broke down these 2 videos on Newsmax on Sunday Agenda. Now, I didn't go into what they were saying and how they were saying it, simply because it might mess something up for law enforcement. And I'll explain that to you once this thing is resolved. I'm going to do a whole video on what's going on in that video, as well as the brothers' video and the video where they're saying they're going to pay the ransom. Let's take a look.
Joining us now is world-renowned behavioral analyst and body language expert, Scott Rouse. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. We don't want to speculate. We don't know what's going on exactly. The investigators are doing the best they can. Based on, though, what we know, those 40 minutes, somebody was inside the house, 40 approximately minutes, somebody was taking out the cameras. You see the siblings there holding on to one another. Your thoughts?
Yeah, some people see this and say the behavior is kind of odd for someone in that situation. We have to keep in mind that they've been at the highest level of stress they've ever been in their lives. Right now, you're seeing it. And they've been directed to say, we need to tell them now that we're ready to pay the ransom. So that's what we're looking at. These people who are at a very high level of stress. And after a while, that burns you out. And there's no way to feel those emotions from a body language perspective the way you initially do. So that's why they look so odd. And that's why it looks like they're not into it, or it looks fake in some instances. Yeah. So especially Savannah, because she's been running this, I'm sure, 1,000 times, and she's the key communicator in this.
Let's play the video where they said, "We will pay." Take a look at this.
Okay.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
What do you make of this?
All right. Well, there are a few things that are different here that are in that initial video and the first one that came out. We're actually seeing a little bit of anger here from Savannah and frustration in all three of them. Mm-hmm. I won't go into the minute details of all those, but I promise you that's what's in there. So apparently they're either under the
Let's play the first video. Let's play the first video so we can see the difference. Do we have video of that? The first video? Is this it right here? Can we start playing it?
I didn't get to finish what I was saying here, but what I'm also seeing is grief and defeat, and that's very important. And again, we'll talk about that later on.
We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her.
So let's break down the difference in the two videos. Okay. You can see her, she's hunched over in that first one, and the second one seems a little bit more defiant. We will pay. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, in this situation of the video you just showed, even though the movements are small, they're fluid. Everyone's moving in a fluid fashion. If you look at the sister, when she takes several of those big deep breaths, not in this section of it, she takes several big deep breaths and she's almost cocked to the side there. Savannah, she's looking up. Her voice isn't as tight. It isn't as high. It isn't as loud. So she's not projecting as loudly as she was in the second one we looked at a couple minutes ago. And then the brother's pretty much not changed much at all. He's pretty much stayed the same breath rate. His blink rate hadn't changed much at all either. So I guess he's a stoic person in this situation.
Let's play the brothers one. Do we have that video of the brothers? It's right here.
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
So there you have the brother seems kind of the same. Let's give us your analysis.
In this situation, he's rehearsed that about 3 times. That would be, if I was a betting man, that's what I'd say. I'd say that's his 3rd shot at it. And the people that are watching him are the ones that are okaying it as he says that. So he's reading what he's saying, but he already knows the lines as well. He doesn't know them verbatim, but he knows them well enough to give part of them and then look down to start the next one. So that's a rehearsed one. Also the very first video we saw, that was probably the 3rd or 4th again, if I was a betting man, I'd say it was probably the third shot at it. Because of the way when they deliver those messages they're giving back or to the camera, you can tell when they pause, the other ones relax and the other ones start. They're preparing for the other one to start, so they know where their parts are, where those sections are. They're at least familiar with the words that happen, that are spoken before they start up again.
Right.
And in this last one, I think Savannah is the only one supposed to be talking there.
All right, let's leave it right there. Scott Rouse, thank you so much. All right.
Now, remember, when this is resolved, I'm going to go over what they're saying in those videos and why I couldn't tell you what they're saying in those videos. It's obvious to law enforcement, and that's all I'll say about that, but there's more to come.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
On behalf of our family, we want to thank all of you for the prayers for our beloved mom, Nancy. We feel them, and we continue to believe that she feels them too. Our mom is a kind, faithful, loyal, fiercely loving woman of goodness and light. She is funny, and spunky, and clever. She has grandchildren that adore her and crowd around her and cover her with kisses. She loves fun and adventure. She is a devoted friend. She is full of kindness and knowledge. Talk to her and you'll see.
The light is missing from our lives. Nancy is our mother. We are her children. She is our beacon. She holds fast to joy in all of life's circumstances. She chooses joy day after day. Despite having already passed through great trials of pain and grief, we are always going to be merely human, just normal human people who need our mom.
Let me ask you something. How do you feel knowing there are data brokers out there making billions and billions of dollars from selling people's personal information, most of the time without their consent, and eroding privacy in the process? And what really bothers me is they're not exactly rushing to stop the scammers and spammers and stalkers from buying that information. You know they're doing it. You get those emails and phone calls and texts too. And most people don't realize how common it is until it affects them. So here's the problem. We're all using those apps and services that are convenient, but those things harvest a whole lot of data. And it's frustrating knowing the solution is usually presented as a trade-off. You either go completely off the grid or you accept that your privacy becomes a product. I don't like that trade-off, and I don't think you should have to by automatically removing your information from those sites and keeping it. An identity theft insurance with U.S. fraud experts ready to help around the clock. So.
And for more, we are joined by Tracy Walder tonight, News Nation national security contributor and former CIA officer and FBI special agent. Tracy, thank you so much for joining us on this case.
Thank you for having me, Natasha.
So last night, the Guthrie family posting another video pleading with kidnappers to return their mother. You've said it sounds as if they're almost speaking in coded words here. Let's take a listen to this together.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
You say there are two phrases that are really standing out to you. Tell me more about that.
Well, I think the first one is where she says towards the end that this is very valuable to us. I think that word valuable is probably something that is answering something that was specific in that ransom note or language that the FBI suggested that she use in her response back. It seems to me that she's looking at a paper perhaps on the ground. I think they have been in all of these videos that they've made. The next one is that they can have her back so that they can celebrate with her. In my opinion, it's a very thoughtful choice of words. Instead of saying we just want our mother back because we love her, they're saying they want to celebrate with her. So what that means, obviously, I don't know, but those are two ways to say those phrases that, in my opinion, are not common. And so I believe that they were answering very specific things in that ransom letter.
And you say their demeanor also feels different in this video compared to previous videos. Tell me more.
Yeah, so I'm pretty clear that I don't read body language. I think it's inappropriate to do in a very, I guess, traumatic situation that truly none of us, I hope, are ever in. But I do feel that in this video, they seem almost a bit defeated. They seem somewhat resolved and resigned because in the first video, they really spoke about, they humanized their mom, in my opinion, quite frankly. They really humanized her, talked about the amazing characteristics that she has. And in this video, it really is just to the point. It has emotion, but it's emotionless, if that makes any sense. In the first one, there was a lot of tears. And in this one, they've almost just resigned themselves.
There have been at least 3 ransom notes that we know of sent to various media outlets and family members, some describing insider details about the crime scene that the public would not know. We know KOLD News receiving 2 communications from an anonymous online tip system. The one sent just before noon yesterday did not have demands, nor did it have proof of life. And then hours later, the Guthries post this video. What do these notes tell us about the kidnappers and the likely situation and the condition Nancy could be in now?
So in my opinion, I believe that these kidnappers, essentially know what they're doing, and they know that the more communication that they have with the family, with law enforcement, with news media, the more they open themselves up to, I guess, being caught. So they're really minimizing the amount of communication, because we've seen 2 videos, 2 of the 3 that have been posted by the family are all about trying to open up lines of communication. And this kidnappers is not wanting to do that at all, because I believe that they know the risks.
What does your gut say about Nancy's condition tonight?
I don't want to speculate on that. I'm trying to be very sensitive to the family. If I was someone in this position, I don't know how I would feel about someone speculating about my elderly parents. I'm really trying to be sensitive and not speculate on that.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Seth, psychologist, and I wanted to share a point in one follow-up video. I've done a couple other videos on this Nancy Guthrie missing case, but I just wanted to share another point that I think is really important as the public empathy and I think anxiety level of so many people familiar with this story as it grows and really escalates. One of the things that I think is really important to look at is to look at this from a psychological assessment perspective. And that's often how I look at things as a clinical psychologist. When you are trained in clinical psychology, you learn psychological testing and you learn really comprehensive assessment skills. And one of the things that you look at is thinking, the type of thinking one engages in. And one of the reasons why I think this Nancy Guthrie case has caused such an extreme emotional reaction in people is because of how confusing it is. And part of why that is related to the ransom notes. Now, the first ransom note that was received, it was received reportedly at the end of the 2nd day after she had been reported missing. So she was first reported missing on a Sunday in the morning. And then later, the following day, and not just on the 2nd day that she was reported missing, but at the end of the 2nd day reported missing. For abductions, that is a significant delay in terms of communicating, sending that ransom note. Now, with this particular case, there seems to be so much confusion in the very beginning about what reports were confirmed and what reports were not. And so that just added to a lot of confusion. But the public's takeaway from a lot of the communications from the sheriff's department originally were that this is a woman who needs daily medication, and that it was not clear that the medications were taken with her. It was not clear that she actually had these medications. Now, here's the part that's important psychologically. When we think about this from an assessment perspective psychologically, and we look at the thinking, if you take a person who engages in clear, cohesive thinking, clinically, what we would call that is rational thinking, goal-directed thinking, thinking that is linear and cohesive, okay? When we think about that individual going to abduct an individual who is 84 years old, clear, goal-directed thinking would say, if the motivation is for money, if there is a mercenary motivation and we want to keep this individual alive, again, a person with goal-directed thinking would look around the environment and would imagine, because most individuals at 84 are taking some types of medications, would simply go to a medicine cabinet in the bathroom and just clear it out and throw things in a bag if there's limited time. They may take articles of clothing to keep that person comfortable. Again, clear, goal-directed thinking would want to send the message to those who would later discover that she's missing, that care was taken to help meet this individual's needs. Again, all in the purpose of keeping her alive, okay? Now, we don't know, of course, many details about this case. Law enforcement always has to keep critical details private for obvious reasons. But the public's reaction to this, and what I think is the public's anxiety about this, yes, on the one hand, there are people that are frustrated by the sort of wall-to-wall media coverage about this, noting that there are so many missing children, for example, who don't get half the media attention. Actually, scratch that, not half, not even a fraction of the media percentage. And that is a valid frustration. But there are a lot of other people that, because of the nature of this case, an 84-year-old woman, this is triggering a lot of anxiety for elderly individuals, especially elderly individuals who live alone. And this is also triggering a lot of anxiety and panic to some extent, I think, for their children's generation, thinking and worrying about their parents, picturing having the empathy if that were to happen to their parent, how they would feel. And so a lot of the world that is watching this really on some level wants the relief to know what happened here, really ideally wanted her to come home safe so that they could sort of appease their own real world anxieties about what this would mean if this happened to them, picturing this if this happened to them. But here is the most important point psychologically, I believe, the takeaway for everyone looking at this, aside from some of the pragmatic real world realities. What can each one of us learn from this situation in terms of trying to increase safety, physical safety at one's home, communication devices, things like that? Those are the real world realities that hopefully people will take away in time from this case. But the other point is that this case can serve as a reminder about what it means when we, I say the communal we, human nature, finds themselves in situations where they feel overwhelmed and confused, where they find themselves getting sucked into details that don't seem to add up. For example, a detail like an abduction of an 84-year-old woman, and yet no known, at least to the public, no known attempts to secure medications, to secure clothing, things like that. And a ransom note that doesn't just come around the time of the abduction, but at the end of the second day after reporting. See, human nature says it doesn't add up. And this happens all the time. Think, for example, about so many difficult situations that are completely unrelated in your own life. This is why so many times people stay in unhealthy, dysfunctional relationships, because they forget what is their number one internal rule, that life is not meant to be suffered as a pattern for years and years, This is why so many people stay in miserable job situations, because they often find themselves focusing on the little details as opposed to sticking to an internal rule, an internal protocol in life that could help them, which is that I don't tolerate working in a situation with a boss who mistreats me. I cannot and I will not. These are examples of how so many people find themselves staying in dysfunctional situations. Why? Because they often get sucked into the stimulation, the minutia, the details of situations, and they lose perspective on the big picture. And so when it comes to this case, from a very sort of psychologically common sense perspective, when we look at the ransom note and the details that I shared about it, my question is this just another example of the public's inclination, the human nature inclination to believe or get sucked into details and lose perspective on the big picture, what the rational explanation is? I'm Dr. Seth, psychologist.
What the rational? Seems to me, I don't know, man. Could this be? I'm just going to break this. I'm just going to jump this out here. This is a wild swing. Very wild swing. Could this be a sacrifice? I mean, Savannah has been with, she makes a lot of money. She's in the elite of, she's in the, back-to-back Little John's son come up missing or found dead. All of a sudden, her mother is mysteriously kidnapped. I don't know, man. This is, could this be a sacrifice? Illuminati? I mean, these people up here are really strange. Really strange. I don't know, man. Because first I'm thinking, my first read was maybe Savannah and them were doing bad with money. Maybe she mismanaged her money. Did a quick shot to the vein. But then I think about it more about how she still works for Today News. She's a anchor. So she makes, I don't know, she makes a good bit of money. She's been working there for quite a long time. Could this be Illuminati sacrifice? It's so coincidental that Little John's son got taken out. All of a sudden, he walks out the house at 6 a.m. and ends up in the bottom of the lake. Her mother goes home after a normal party, and all of a sudden, just somebody kidnaps an 84-year-old lady. And then they sent all these ransom notes in. This could be a Illuminati type thing. I don't know, man. It's looking very kind of like that, right? Like, did Savannah sacrifice her mom for fame, fortune? This falls, I hate to say it, because these people at the top are very powerful, because they're the only one who could pull this off. The people at the top, the music industries, and these high power, rich people, right? They got, they have people in place to pull this shit off. And I believe they gave them instructions. You're going to make it look like a kidnap to make it that it would be hard to them to convict the daughter or the husband, right? I don't know, man. I'm kind of crazy. I don't know. But I don't put nothing past this Illuminati shit. I don't put nothing past. Because when they told me that Savannah's rich, I'm thinking, rich? That means she has some connections. She's in the, for you to be a news anchor that long, does she have a handler? Is she tied in with them people? These people, they seem to have a grip on, where the money's been going, who's getting the money, where they can demand, them to give a sacrificial lamb. So that leads me to believe that Nancy Guthrie was maybe a sacrificial lamb. Now look at some. I mean, y'all let me know if I'm going crazy. Just tell me if I'm crazy. I'm just all over the place. But but I'm just saying, in 2026, the little John son ends up in the bottom of the lake, and Savannah Guthrie's mother is most likely buried, somewhere in a pit. Could this be Illuminati sacrifice for fame and fortune? Y'all help me out. Maybe let me know if I'm crazy. I mean, I might be crazy. I'm just speculating, but it's just too coincidental.
Logan, thanks so much for joining us. What is your reaction to news that the family is willing to pay a ransom to get 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie back?
It doesn't surprise me at all. If I was hired on the case, I would be advising them to do that. This whole thing doesn't make any sense. Whoever's done this is doing everything that you don't do in a kidnapping. It's just the back door was wide open. The front door is where there were blood drops on like the porch area, but they didn't go any further. There was no trail of where they went to. And they towed away the sister's car. And I heard that there's a suspect in the brother-in-law. I said from the very beginning, somebody close to the family has to be involved in this. They knew too much about the house, about everything. The wiring on the roof could have been a listening device in the house. They got her if they came in the back. I don't know why the back door was wide open. They must have left from the front where the blood was, but the back door was wide open and the cameras were smashed. They weren't just removed, they were smashed. So they waited 72 hours for the ransom note. That's not what you do. The ransom note usually comes really quick. And there's some reason why they're not supplying any proof of life. Like I said yesterday, maybe that's because they haven't figured it out yet. And they don't know how to respond to the family and talk to them without it being traced back to the kidnappers. There's just so much that doesn't make sense and why they're doing it. Nobody's going to get paid on a kidnapping if you don't have communication with the family of the kidnapped person. Nobody's going to pay without proof of life. And everybody knows that because of AI, proof of life can be really screwed around with. So they've got to get a direct conversation going with Nancy and ask her questions that proves that is Nancy. Another weird thing is why they released the house so fast. The police did. Now the sheriff, technically the sheriff would be in charge of this. The FBI doesn't come in and like a bull in a china closet and say, hey, we're taking over. The sheriff would be in charge. However, the sheriff was caught off guard with this new video that they put out. So I'm trying to figure out if the feds are guiding them on what to do, or a private detective. I've been called in on many kidnappings when the police were working on the kidnapping, and I spent more time with the family than the police did. There's just so much that is weird about what they've done and how they're continuing this thing.
Logan, can I ask you, if the family is willing to pay the ransom, does that tell you that they have some sort of proof of life?
No, I don't believe they have proof of life. They're just telling them that we're willing to pay the ransom.
What's up, IB Wody? Welcome to the show. Man, I don't know, man. This is like some Illuminati shit going on here, man. I don't know, man. I don't know. This lady, Nancy, gets supposedly get kidnapped in the middle of the night. I would say the morning. And, they got the ransom note 72 hours later. I think it's in-house, but I'm wondering, is this a Illuminati sacrifice. Nancy Guthrie. So she's a daughter of Savannah Guthrie, who's a major news anchor for Today. I think she's on Today newscast. Like she's a news anchor, and she makes a good amount of money, probably over $250,000 a year, over that. So she probably makes like more than that. So I'm thinking maybe this is a Illuminati type of movement. I don't know, man. It looks like it might be a sacrifice. You know, they went all the way to Pima, Arizona. So they don't know anything. They got all they got, and I'm gonna play the video for you. I'll play for the video for you.
If they had proof of life, it's possible that they do. Again, like I said, the feds could be playing the kidnappers, but this is going along it's going so long without any communications, without any negotiations, and it's just not making sense. There's only two reasons you do a kidnapping. It's money or revenge. So I don't know who would have revenge on them unless it's something that's that Guthrie did. Maybe in her work or something that somebody's pissed off about. But and the news, the letters that they're sending to the news, that's not what you do. These guys are doing everything you don't do. And how did they get her, downstairs when she can't walk 50 feet or, 100 feet by herself? So you got to get her downstairs. Maybe they rang the doorbell to get her to come downstairs on her own and then went out the back door. But why would there be blood in the front? There's just so many things that don't make sense. Usually these things follow a certain pattern. All kidnappings kind of follow a certain pattern. And these guys are not doing anything that makes sense. And if it's for revenge, why would they be sending the ransom notes? And obviously they're saying something to her, and they keep saying it to Savannah and the family. They keep giving her a little more information to prove that they have her mom. So it doesn't make sense.
One more thing, the car being towed. What do you think about that? What does that indicate?
Well, they said that the brother-in-law, they towed the sister's car. So the brother-in-law, her husband, is supposedly a suspect. In any investigation, you start with the family, whether it's a murder, in the family. You start with the family members, the people that are closest. You start investigating with them, and then you widen the circle. Every investigation, you draw a circle, and you put all the information in there, and you start pulling out what's not factual. It's typical that somebody, I don't know why they would say that the brother-in-law is a suspect. That's a little weird. And it's weird that they released the house so early and they keep going back to it. Mm-hmm. They've gone back 4 times, 5 times. They went back and got something off the roof. And the only thing that could be, not the only thing, but the most likely thing is that some sort of a listening device so that they would know what was going on inside the house. They had to have the house figured out. And the back door, like I say, was wide open. There didn't seem to be any damage. There was forced entry, they said, to the house. Now, the forced entry could be a red herring. If the back door was wide open, it's just so much of this does not make sense in the normal run of a kidnapping.
Logan, your 40 years of experience, how does this end?
With her medical problems, it's really dangerous. And the longer that it goes, and she doesn't have her medication and the pacemaker stopped. How are they keeping her alive? Now that could be, unfortunately, that could be a reason why there is no proof of life. They're trying to get the money if something happened to Nancy, and they're still trying to get the money. The easiest thing would be show proof of life, make arrangements for the money, but they should have a plan already. Like I said yesterday, they should have a plan of how they're going to deliver the money. I mean, kidnappings, if you're going to be successful, have to be planned out really, really well. And it doesn't sound like the beginning of this was planned out, and the back end of it, they have no idea. It took 72 hours for the ransom to come around, which is weird. I can't see them taking her a long ways away. They would have had time. They would have had time to get the hell out of there and get far away. But then you got to bring her back or leave her someplace for them to go get. It's going to be harder to prove that she's alive before you pay the ransom. There's an exchange, and you've got to keep them at the same time, where the money is taken at one location and the person is released at another location. So they got themselves some problems. I mean, the sheriff doesn't seem to be in charge of the investigation. The feds may be pulling the strings, or there could be a private detective. Many, many times they'll call somebody like me. The family will, just because they want a different opinion. They want.
This is starting to seem more and more like a sacrifice, man. Because there is no, let me say this, kidnapping has been out of date, for ransom has been out of date in America forever. Forever, ever. Because America, what do? They don't pay ransoms. They don't ever pay it. You make your demand, they're going to come get you. They're gonna surround you. So nobody does that. Nobody does kidnappings no more, like for ransom. That's number one. There is no entity in America. Let me be clear. Maybe in South America, maybe in Mexico, maybe even in Russia. But in America, there are no kidnap for ransom people that are crews that are in existence. It's just not. There's no profit. There's no profit there. You got a better chance robbing a bank. You got a better chance of doing a home invasion or something, right? Or a commercial burglary or some shit. Ain't nobody's been. Ain't nobody finna, because kidnapping is automatic life sentence. 25 life. Then if they die on you, you're talking about an 84-year-old lady with a motherfucking pacemaker. Now you're looking at special circumstances, the death penalty. You're kidnapping an 84-year-old lady with a pacemaker. She die on you, nigga. That's a life sentence plus a death penalty. So you're gonna they're gonna charge you. They're gonna put 25 life. Then the prosecution is going after the death penalty. 100%. If she dies on you, let's just say there is a new and upcoming for ransom organization. Let's just say somebody planned this out. Dude, you have to understand that she's an 84-year-old lady, right? You're already looking, just the kidnap alone is a life sentence. Then everybody knows. The police are involved. America do not pay ransom. They don't pay. They're coming to get you. Everybody knows this. That's why nobody does that no more. That's why you don't see people doing that shit no more. And then on top of, you're talking about an 84-year-old woman who has a pacemaker. So if you get caught, not only are you looking at life sentence, now you're talking about special allegations, special circumstances, the death penalty, and you go on death row. So nobody is that stupid in 2020. It ain't that serious. It's better off. You better off going rob a bank, or you got better off buying a Breach truck. At least the cash is in there. At least the money's in there. You got a ransom. If you get away with that, the money's in your pocket. I'm not saying that's you're gonna be successful, but why would you do a kidnapping and have to take somebody, an elderly lady, ship her, move her around? It's gonna take forever to get her into the vehicle, because you don't want to move her too fast because she might have a heart attack on you. I don't think nobody took her, I.B. Wody. I think they came in the house, they deaded her immediately. Now, at first I'm thinking maybe for her health insurance policy, maybe she got a life insurance policy. Then I was thinking, maybe the house. But I'm like, her daughter's rich. The son-in-law dropped her off. Her daughter's rich. And then as soon as he drops her off, somebody comes to the house, smash all the cameras. They dead her. They take her, and I think they bury the body. I'm thinking it's a sacrifice, Rody. That's what I'm coming up with. This is Illuminati all day. This has Illuminati written all over it. This is Donda Rest, like Kanye's mom. Same type of situation. Now, I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just speculating. But I am saying this is not, nobody's going to take the risk for money they're not going to get. Nobody's going to do that. If they are kidnapped, they're going to the only kidnapping that is very popular and is still going on is sex trafficking. Nobody wants an 84-year-old woman. Nobody's going to want her. She's going to die before she even, come on. So, Scooby-Doo. They call Scooby-Doo, I.B. Wody, for facts. Because this is, in my opinion, this has Illuminati. Because the only one who could pull this off like this, well, maybe either the family or the Illuminati. They're the only two entities who could put it off. The family could have pulled it off, but they wouldn't get no money from a revenge for who? Their family. And then if you look at them give that statement about they paid the ransom, they're not even, their bodies look like they're not even really, they're just basically saying anything, right? This might be Illuminati all day, baby. People, for the love of money, is the root to all evil. I mean, Savannah's a pretty big news anchor. She probably makes like $500,000 a year. Right? She probably makes $500,000 a year. I mean, that's not a great amount, but it's over the years, that's millions of dollars. But I don't know, man. But they made a lot of mistakes. Why would they ask for a ransom though? You all right?
Now, this all comes after a series of notes sent to a local TV station and TMZ. One that was sent on Tuesday was a ransom note. We know it had two deadlines, one for Thursday at 5 p.m., a different deadline looming tomorrow, and it demanded a certain amount of Bitcoin. That ransom note included some details about a broken floodlight in Nancy Guthrie's home, details about the placement of a smartwatch inside of her home that has led authorities to believe there is a chance that it might have been written by somebody who is actually inside of the home, that it might be a legitimate ransom note. Then on Thursday, we saw, or rather on Friday, we saw another message sent to KOLD from an author who may have been the potential abductor of Nancy Guthrie. I have not seen that second message, but Jessica Bubala, the news director at KOLD, has. I want you to hear what she has to say about that second message.
The other thing that we can share is that there is something inside the note that we believe the sender is thinking would indicate to investigators that it is the same people who sent the first note. When we received that first note and we saw that last line that talks about the watch and the floodlight, we believed that as well. We believed that that was something that they thought would indicate to investigators who were at the, people who were also at the scene, that perhaps that they were at the scene, and that would legitimate that, make that note legitimate.
So, Alex, I can't stress enough that we do not know what investigators were looking for just an hour and a half ago when they re-entered that home. However, there is at least the possibility that they may have been looking at something that may have been mentioned on that latest message sent to KOLD earlier this week. But that's something we just don't know right now. Alex?
Yeah, okay. Stay with us, Alex, because we're going to bring into the conversation criminologist Casey Jordan. So, Casey, what do you make of the new police activity today? What might they be looking for? And why aren't they sharing more information on the case right now? Does it tell you they're at a sensitive time?
It definitely does. But it also indicates, again, as we all keep saying, there is so much to this that we don't know. What were those details that were in the latest communication? I mean, we have been waiting, hoping for proof of life. And we do understand from KOLD that the system, the server that accepts emails, which is how the communication was received to them, does not accept photos or videos. So it had to be a text message. Now, that is not to say it didn't include perhaps a URL that could take them to a video, but there is no indication that there has been proof of life. And what you do expect is that there were other details in there that made police go on these searches in different places. We know they have been at Nancy's daughter's Annie's house. We know they have been back at Nancy's house itself. There's more looking, I believe, in the desert. I mean, it looks as if they are on a search and recovery mission at this point, more than a search and rescue.
Well, I had not been told that before, and that's something that, strikes heartache for all of us who care about this story so much. And Savannah, but again, this is pure speculation, so let's make that really clear. When you looked at the new video from the Guthries, what does the difference in tone from their previous statements indicate to you?
Well, that's why we kind of are speculating that the family has accepted or resigned themselves to the worst case.
There will be no proof of life because she's already dead. She's already dead. She was dead before she left the house. Bet that. Bet that. She was dead before she left the house. That's why there's blood on the front porch. That was her blood. Right? She ain't got no, she's 84 years old. She's vulnerable. It busted her head. Bam. She died instantly. So whoever went in that house went there to take her out. They went there to kidnap her and hold her for ransom. I believe the letters are deploy. It's a deploy to throw off the scent. She was dead before she left the house. Why was there blood on the front door? Because maybe they ring the doorbell. She came to the front door, and somebody entered the back door. They probably already in the house, maybe, and busted in the back of her head right there. And there was blood, and the blood got on the ground. And then they took her out the back, put her in some car, and probably took her 10 miles. They took her quite a ways, buried her. She's dead already. Ain't no proof. Ain't gonna be no proof of life. Everybody know America doesn't pay. That is the consensus amongst all kidnappers. America does not pay. They do not pay for ransoms. That's why there hasn't been nobody kidnapped in America for ransom in over 60 years because there's no money in it. There's no money in it. So whoever did this, I think went in there to take her out. Now, could this be Illuminati sacrifice? Did she sacrifice her mom for fame and fortune? Could this be? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. But this is very, very interesting. Nobody really knows. But I'm thinking it's either one or two things. Family took her out because it's cheaper. She's maybe her hospital bills were very expensive. Maybe the maintenance of her, maybe the daughter, Savannah, was paying a lot of money for her to keep her alive. So she wanted her dead. I don't know, right? Or Illuminati sacrifice. So it's one of those two things. She's cheaper. She's worth more dead than she is alive because somebody had to take care of her while she was alive. And it had to be the daughter, right? Her daughter was taking care of her. And the medical bills them things was expensive. She had a pacemaker. She got probably a nurse that comes to the house. She probably frequent the hospital. So she's probably her medical bills probably 50, 60, maybe 100-some thousand a year or more. That could be another reason why they take her out. Family had her taken out. Right? I mean, I'm just speculating, right? I'm just weighing out everything. The only thing that could make sense to me other than the Illuminati is she was way more expensive alive than she is dead. So they probably thought like she's living too long. Like, damn, who wants to pay these bills? She got some $1 million health. She got $1 million policy on her head, a life insurance policy. So that's going to pay back that money that her daughter's been spending. She's probably going to spend over. So she's 84 years old. She's probably going to spend over. Her daughter probably spent over $300-400 grand on her mother. I don't know, man. Just saying, who knows, right? Who knows? But it's just kind of fishy.
Scenario. It is not just based on the tone of their message, but also their body language and the actual textual analysis of their message. I think it's not even 40 words, less than 20 seconds. It is straight to the point, and it does not ask for proof of life, and it does not ask for her safe release. They use the word return, and when Savannah reads the words, we received your message and we understand, her sister Annie looks like she is about to have a nervous breakdown because of what they understand. And again, this is just an interpretation, but most people who watch this message do believe that when they talk about celebrating with her, they mean a celebration of life. Everyone hopes I'm wrong. Everyone hopes Nancy is returned alive. But there seems to be a shift in tone with this last message, which means that they will pay for any information and they want their mother back in any state, any condition.
Look, I will say, I appreciate what you're saying with your experience. It's also sometimes hard to interpret.
Yeah, this is so big, man. I don't know.
Randy, good morning to you. Help us decipher this new message, both the words that are used and the tone we heard from the Guthrie siblings.
Yeah, this is a major break here. Oh, when I say major break, remember there's two issues here. One is the return of the victim, and the family's willingness to pay. If the purported amount of $6 million is accurate, that's a huge deal. I would say that since they are making this statement that they have received information that would allow them to believe that their mom is alive. So that's the good news. Now, the bad news is that when $6 million ransom is paid, what does this do? This indicates to the world who is watching this that that this is an avenue that could be explored by other people to do similar things. And so this is this is the big spag here, that we everybody wants Mrs. Guthrie to return home safely to her family. Now, this won't stop law enforcement from continuing their investigation and trying to bring these people to justice.
In the videos that we have seen so far from the Guthrie siblings, they have really seemed to appeal to the captor's conscience here. We've heard them in past videos using mom, mommy, of course, really trying to humanize Nancy Guthrie here. This latest video, though, it seemed to me, as somebody watching it, it seemed some defeat, if you will. It was more somber in tone. Do you think that something has changed behind the scenes as far as their messaging to the potential captors concerned?
Well, I think that they are working with the FBI and their behavioral sciences unit to craft that message. This isn't something that's just done off the cuff. This is being examined by the FBI and the law enforcement sources on the scene there, and trying to determine how best to couch their message back to the kidnappers. So this isn't done, simply throwing a camera in front of the family. This is carefully rehearsed and understood by the family, that this is the verbiage that they should use with every intention to to create some dialogue between them and the kidnappers that will be compassionate.
This is day 8 now of the search for Nancy Guthrie. There are reports that there is a possible vehicle of interest in this case, but as of right now, there are no suspects, there are no persons of interest. We don't expect any new press conferences with authorities today. What do you make of the case and where it stands now?
Well, you can see that law enforcement is really, really active here. They are leaving no stone unturned. The FBI is playing a much more critical role here than the local sheriff's department. They have really entered into the fray here with all of the resources at their disposal. They have amazing forensic abilities and technical abilities. There is an all hands on deck type of mentality here, where all law enforcement is working as diligently as they can to try and bring her back and to bring these individuals to justice.
We've seen a lot of video from our crews in Arizona the last couple of days. We're showing some of it. There were FBI agents on the roof of Nancy's home. Yesterday, they were back at the house again. They've spent several hours there, again, blocking off the house. What are they looking for?
They are looking for any evidence forensically that they can find. As this investigation continues, they are getting leads and tips, hundreds of them, from not just the public who has been asked to report anything that they could possibly be related to this. They are also examining every piece of video that they can from the area. They're looking at the technological capabilities of digital data from the cell phone towers, and also from the messages that are being received. So there's a lot at play here. There's a lot going on, and they are trying to do everything they can to corroborate this information that is being related to the family about the safety of their mom, and also at the same time try and put evidence together that can lead to the arrest of the individuals who commit.
And that's why they keep going back to the house, because they don't believe that there's actual kidnapping. They believe she's dead and buried somewhere. That's what they believe. That's why they're back. That's why they keep going back to the house, because they believe that's where the murder happened. They're probably treating it as a murder investigation, but they're not going. They're keeping things closed under the door right now because they want to make everybody think they're, oh yeah, we just kidnapping. No, they know it's a murder investigation. That's why they keep going back with the dogs. They're looking for any scent to lead where she's at. Because this is day 7, they probably think she's dead because she hasn't had a medication. And she's probably deceased. I believe she was dead before she left the house. I think they went in there and took her out. That's what I believe.
Committed to this disgusting crime, and so they're working every angle here.
And unfortunately, none of this is a quick process. Randy, quickly here, what do you think happened?
I think they're going to find some relationship took place between the victim and whoever is responsible for this crime. I think that this didn't happen in a vacuum, that there will be, I believe that there will be an arrest eventually in this case. And, the world is watching. So there's a lot of pressure on law enforcement here.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.
Crime that is pragmatic in nature, which involves a highly scheming kind of person who.
Randy, good morning to you. Help us.
Joining us now is best-selling author who has written some of the biggest thrillers on the planet. He spent much of his life inside the minds of countless villains. And I am, of course, talking about former U.S. Navy SEAL Jack Carr. He's the best-selling author of The Terminal List, which was turned into a major television show, also a good friend. Jack, thank you so much for being here tonight. Sorry about the circumstances. You've seen many, many things play out in the course of your career in the military. You've dealt with a lot of...
Yeah, this we're going to follow this case. I'm going to end the stream right now. Thank you for coming. Hit the like, subscribe if you're new. But we're going to follow this throughout the week. So subscribe so you can get notified. We're going to get to the bottom of this because there's some foul play here. I truly believe. I'm going to do it live in about 20 minutes on something else. But, we're going to get to the bottom of this. Welcome to Ruthless Truth.